Mobile, South Africa presents Theatre International. From the entertainment centers of the world, from the studios of London, Paris, New York, Brussels, Toronto, Berlin, Sydney, and Hollywood, each week Mobile, South Africa brings you the stars of show business in Theatre International. And tonight, our special presentation stars London's Sidney James and Charles Hawtrey in a comedy especially written for Mobile, South Africa, The Vital Cog.
Today, change to the confidence oils from Mobil.
Mobil motor oils exceed the warranty requirements of every leading car manufacturer in the world. That's confidence.
And they carry the SABS mark of approval. That's confidence.
Mobil motor oils are right for your car. Change to them today with confidence.
Motor with Mobil and smile, smile. Motor with Mobil and smile.
There we go. Take the form out of the in basket, check the totals, detach the counterfoil, bash it with a rubber stamp, shove it into the out basket. Oh, that takes skill and imagination, that does. I'll never know how the Ministry of Public Works ever managed without me. I'm back in Britain with a rubber stamp. Out of the in basket, into the out basket, and onto some other poor basket. Well, that's the last of that little lot. How's the enemy? 3:30. Oh, roll on 5 o'clock.
Somebody take that phone. Cog, answer that, will you?
What?
Answer the phone.
Who, me?
Yes, and don't be all day about it, or they'll think we're a government department.
Oh, very funny. Extension 297, Arthur Cog speaking. No, madam, you want transferred accounts. No, this is accounts for transfer. What's the difference? Don't ask me, lady. I only work here. Look, hang on. I'll put you back to the switchboard. The girl there can sort you out. Oh, come on. Come on, you lazy cow.
That's a nice way to talk, I must say.
Well, oh, no, not you, Millicent. I'm trying to transfer this call.
Here's your tea.
Ah,
2 spoonfuls?
4, please.
You're putting on weight.
Would you like to help me take it off?
I haven't got the energy.
Oh, blimey, come on. This flaming switchboard never answers. I don't know what these girls have got to do all day but sit on their big fat... Blimey.
What's the matter?
They answered. Excuse me, but when you have quite finished, would you transfer this call to extension 315, if it's not too much trouble? Makes you blooming sick, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know. By this time of the day, I get a bit stroppy myself.
Get away. Who's been stropping you?
Go on, drink your tea.
Yeah, you're all right, Millie. Very nice.
Me or the tea?
Both.
Well, that's all right, then.
Millicent, where's my tea?
Oh, I'm coming, Mr. Needham.
That's a nice dress you've almost got on.
Do you like it? You don't think it's too short?
Never. I mean, with those legs, you can get away with it.
My dad says it gives men lustful thoughts. I don't think it does. I mean, skirts have been short for years now. You can get used to anything, can't you?
Yeah, I reckon you can.
Put the tea in my office, will you, Millicent?
Yes, Mr. Needham.
Oh, Cog, before I forget, I wanted to have a word with you about some changes we're making that'll affect you.
Changes, Mr. Needham?
Yes, I think you might say changes for the better.
You mean I'm getting promoted?
Good gracious, nothing as startling as that.
Oh.
Here in the accounts department, that sort of thing takes a long time. You'll have to wait for a vacancy. Dead men's shoes, eh?
Yes. Well, I've never seen a healthier-looking bunch of prospective corpses.
Quite so. No, Cog, the big news is that the department is installing a computer now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to tell you that's quite a responsibility. These things cost thousands.
Oh, yes, sir, yes. I mean, I was reading about it in the paper last week. Are you ready for the computer age? We've got to accept the challenge of the 20th century and adapt and all that.
Really, Cog? And are you ready?
Well, yes. I mean, I expect you'll be sending me on a course, eh? And there'll be special training and I'll have to wear a white coat. I mean, we're all technicians these days, aren't we? I mean, not clerks anymore. I mean, that's what life is all about, isn't it?
Not for you, Cog. I just wanted to tell you that from now on our monthly statements on Form 3B/254 will be overprinted by the computer in the bottom right-hand corner. So you, Cog, are now responsible for rubber stamping them in the top left-hand corner. Is that quite clear?
Like crystal.
Good. Oh, yes, and there's just one other thing, Cog. Please don't tie up the office phone with private calls again.
Private calls? Well, stupid twit. I'm not standing for this anymore. I'm going home. I've had enough. I've told you I've had enough.
But you've hardly eaten anything, Arthur. Left half of your nice steak and kidney and all your peas.
No, Dorian, I mean, I'm fed up.
But you're not.
I'm fed up to the teeth with me job.
Then why haven't you eaten your supper? Doesn't it taste nice?
It tastes fine, just fine.
Then why haven't you?
Because I am going through an emotional crisis. Oh, blimey, don't you understand? I mean, at a time like this, I wouldn't feel like eating if you gave me lobster thermostat.
But you don't like shellfish, Arthur. It doesn't agree with you.
Well, I wish you would for a change.
Arthur, I only...
Forget it. It's all my fault that I can't eat. I've had it.
You mean you've had your supper already?
I mean, it's no good. Look, I am never going to get anywhere. It's too late.
It's only 6:30.
Oh, blimey, turn it up. I'm trying to tell you that I am a failure.
That's nonsense, Arthur. You've got a good job.
I am 45. I have spent 13 years in the same office, 7 at the same desk. You call that a good job?
But, Arthur, you always used to be so keen on your work. I remember when you first got the job, you used to come home quite breathless.
Of course I was breathless. I spent all day breathing on the rubber stamp.
But what happened about your promotion? You told me last month they were going to give you something more interesting, something with a little more excitement and colour in it.
Yes. They gave me a purple stamping pad.
So what's the trouble now?
They are putting in a computer. You see that? There's going to be big changes. But do I get a look in? Oh, no. I will be pushing forms in and out of baskets for the next 13 years, or I'll be replaced by a flipping transistor.
Well, Arthur, why don't you get yourself a better job? You could if you studied and got some qualifications.
You mean go to night school at my time of life? You must be joking.
You could learn to work these computer things. There's adverts in the paper all the time. I saw one tonight somewhere.
I couldn't do it. I mean, no man can make a sacrifice like that. I'd have to give up watching the telly.
Yes, here we are. Are you ready for the computer age? The National Institute of Technology will train you as a programmer. Systems analysts and computer programmers are now earning up to £5,000 a year.
5,000 quid. And what about the flaming tax on it, though?
Well, it says the course only lasts 6 weeks, and they'll guarantee to find positions for all students who complete the training.
6 weeks, eh? And I could be a bleeding boffin. How about that? Arthur Cog, the celebrated computer programmer. Tune into your favourite programme with Professor Arthur, the vital cog in the works.
Professor Cog, you must come at once. It's an emergency. The new computer's gone on the blink.
Well, take me to your blinking computer.
This way, Professor. Oh, please hurry. The Minister is depending on you. The entire public works has stopped working.
All right, here we are then. Let's have a look at the works. Yes. Wheels within wheels. This looks like a case for Cog.
You mean you can mend it?
Mend it? My dear Needham, it's very clear that you haven't had the benefits of a scientific education.
No, I'm afraid I haven't.
Or you would see right away that the computer must be completely rebuilt from scratch.
Yes, but what can we do?
Don't hang around, lad. Start scratching.
Yes, sir.
I want all the special equipment, the voltmeter, the amp meter, and the gas meter.
Right away, sir.
The screwdrivers, the pile drivers, a couple of old razor blades, and about 3 miles of fuse wire.
But, Professor, won't you need any assistance?
Not from you, you ignorant clot. Got my own assistant, personally trained in the Cog system. Dr. Millicent?
Yes, Professor. Are we researching together?
The search is over, love. I've found what I'm looking for.
Her? But she's the tea girl in the office.
Dr. Millicent is an expert at figure work.
Yes, I have 2 very impressive diplomas.
And you can't argue with that. Now, come on, Millie. Pass me the cold chisel.
I've warmed it up for you, Professor.
The name is Arthur, my dear.
Arthur? Oh, what a romantic name for a chisel.
All right, then. Now, press the tabulator.
Right.
Grip the grabulator.
Contact.
And now, all systems go.
Roger!
I told you the name is Arthur.
Arthur! Arthur, don't sit there with your eyes closed, your mouth hanging open. What do you think you're doing?
Huh? Eh? Oh, I was just programming.
Well, you missed a good one on the telly. Now, look, Arthur, it's Saturday tomorrow. You could go round to that National Institute place in the morning and see about taking this course.
Oh, all right.
Well, it's 9 o'clock. I'm going to have a bath before I go to bed, if the hot water system's working right.
Nothing in this house works right. All systems have gone.
Today, change to the confidence oils from Mobil.
Mobil motor oils exceed the warranty requirements of every leading car manufacturer in the world. That's confidence.
And they carry the SABS mark of approval. That's confidence.
Mobil motor oils are right for your car. Change to them today with confidence.
Motor with Mobil and smile, smile. Motor with Mobil and smile.
National Institute of Technology, Eric Goodenough speaking, yes? Yes? You're taking our correspondence course in how to build atomic power stations, yes? Oh, you don't understand part 5. Doesn't make any sense. Come in. Just hold on a moment.
Excuse me, good morning.
Good morning.
Is this the National Institute of Techni something or other?
Indubitably.
No, I don't think so. I'm sure it began with a T.
No, I mean, you've come to the right place. Do come in and take a chair.
There isn't one.
Oh, well, somebody else must have taken it. Can't trust these students with anything these days. Well, just hang around while I finish off this phone call. Shan't keep you more than a minute.
All right, thank you.
Hello? Yes. I think I should tell you, sir, that this course was prepared by an international authority on nuclear physics, whose name I'm not at liberty to divulge. He prefers to remain anonymous. You're not surprised? Well, I don't think I can help you on this myself. I'm afraid it's all Greek to me. What? You wish it was all Greek to you? Oh, yes, of course. Well, thank you for ringing, Mr. Christopoulos. Now, can I be of service to you, sir? I'm the director of the Institute. My name is Goodenough.
Good enough for what?
I'm glad you asked me that. Good enough to entrust your future in my hands.
Oh, well, my name's Cog. I saw your advert in the paper about training for computers, so I just thought I'd find out...
Splendid. Say no more. You've made a wise decision, Mr. Clog.
Cog.
Precisely, yes. Now, I just get you to fill in this little form. Mere formality, of course.
But I haven't told you anything
Not necessary, my dear sir. As soon as you walked in this room, I said to myself, yes.
Yes, what?
Yes, please. Yes, I said, here is a man who has the foresight to realize that he needs specialized training, a man with undoubted potential for success, and the remarkable innate intelligence to pick unerringly the one training course that can ensure the realization of his ambitions.
Yes, that's just what I was going to say myself, if I'd thought of it.
Now, just sign here, please, Mr. Snog.
But you hardly know me. I mean, you can't even get my name right.
Well, if it makes you feel happier, then tell me about yourself. What do you do, apart from quibbling about your name?
Well, I'm a clerical officer for the Ministry of Public Works. I'm a civil servant.
And you'd like to be a civil master?
Yeah, that's it.
I can assure you, my dear sir, that once you've taken our training course, a man of your abilities could go straight to the top. I mean, these days, a computer programmer is the power behind the throne. In fact, in this 20th century of ours, the big corporations are being run by the technical men. They are the tycoons of the future.
You mean I could be one of those real big shots with an expense account and all that?
You most certainly could. And now, would you like to sign the enrolment form?
Oh, what can I lose?
Only money. Money.
Yeah, money. How much is this lot going to cost?
Yeah, a token sum, a mere £5.
Ah, well,
per
that's
lesson.
all right, Aye, aye.
But you can make deferred payments out of the splendid salary you'll be earning after completing the course, of course.
Of course.
Yeah, just sign the form, please.
Yes, well, if I'm really going to be a big tycoon, it's always been my dream, you know. A big tycoon. Where do you want me to sign?
Right here, Sir Arthur, if you don't mind.
Very well, Needham. Just pass me the 50-carat gold ballpoint.
Certainly, Sir Arthur. There we are.
I hope this is important. I got her ladyship waiting outside in the yacht, you know.
Of course.
All right, snap it up, lad. She's double parked.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry about this, Sir Arthur, but I'm afraid Mr. Onassis would only accept a cheque personally signed by yourself.
Who does he think I am? I haven't got time to be signing cheques for every Tom, Dick, or what's his name?
Barry,
Ah,
sir.
well, next time he'll have to make do with the governor of the Bank of England.
I don't think there'll be a next time, Sir Arthur. I believe you've squeezed him out completely.
What? Old Aristotle's been throttled?
Yes, I'm afraid so. Do you think you should send him a little note, just to show there's no ill feeling?
A little note, eh? Think a fiver would be enough?
I meant a letter, Sir Arthur.
Then why didn't you say so, you ignorant slob?
I'm terribly sorry, Sir Arthur. It was just my little mistake.
Yes, and where is she?
Who, sir?
Your little mistake. My very private secretary, what takes down everything.
Oh, really, sir?
In a notebook. Millicent?
Good morning, Sir Arthur. Are you ready for me?
Oh, yes, my dear. Come and sit on my knee.
Oh.
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, do you always give dictation like this, Sir Arthur?
Of course. That's why my secretaries call me the great dictator. All right, Needham. Go to the garage, get out the number 3 rolls, run down to the post office and buy me a 4-penny stamp.
Oh, but shouldn't we send the letter airmail?
Don't be a fool, Needham. That costs twice as much.
But it's worth every penny. Believe me, Mr. Fogg, this course will change your life. You'll be a new man. Your wife will hardly recognize you.
Is that you, Arthur? I hardly recognised you. You seem to have changed.
Yes. I put on me chunky knit pullover. I think it does something for me.
Yes. Makes you look like a chunky knit.
Very comical.
Well, how did you get on at the Institute? Are they going to take you?
What do you mean, are they going to take me? I'm telling you, Doreen, this chap was begging me on his hands and knees. Said it would be the greatest opportunity of his career to teach a pupil with my potential.
Did he really say that?
Well, more or less, you know. I mean, he was impressed with me, you know that? Very sharp fella he is, knows his stuff.
And is he going to teach you?
Well, no, it's not quite like that. You see, it's a correspondence course. They do it all by letters. Each week they send me all a dope, I work at it, and then I send my homework back to be marked. It's very simple. The only way to study in this modern age.
Yes, I suppose so.
Well, what's the matter? Don't you want me to do it? Well, it was your idea in the first place.
Oh, I don't know. It seems you're going to spend a lot of money on stamps.
Well, you've got to spend to get, haven't you?
Yes, but you can't spend if you haven't got. I mean, it's not as if you earn a fortune right now. I'm not complaining, of course.
Well, I am. And I'm chucking up the lousy job.
You can't do that.
Of course I can do that. In 6 months' time, I'll be a 5,000 a year man. I can afford to take a holiday. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to walk straight into that grotty office and tell them just where they get off.
Now, look here, Cog. What's all this about getting off?
Well, I was just wondering whether I could get off early today, Mr. Needham.
You know the rules, Cog. Nobody leaves early on Monday.
Yeah, but this is very important, sir. I mean, I want to pick up the first instalment of the correspondence course I just started.
Correspondence course? I thought they posted those things to you.
Well, they do, but I don't want to wait till tomorrow. I want to start tonight. I'm very keen, you see.
Really? And what is this course you're so enthusiastic about?
Computer programming. In 6 weeks, I'll be leaving here, starting an entirely different life.
Yes, I'm afraid you will. Now that you've brought up the subject, I think I better tell you right now, Cog, that we've got to cut down on staff. And so at the end of the month, you'll be getting your notice. You've just got 4 more weeks with us.
Oh, no, I have not. I am not staying where I'm not wanted. I'm leaving right now.
You can't walk out like that.
And the only way that you will ever get me back in here is when I'm running the place.
Really, Cog? You see yourself as the next Minister of Public Works, do you?
Well, come to think of it, why not? I've always fancied myself in politics. The Right Honourable Arthur Cog, MP.
Oh, don't be so modest, Cog. Why not take over the premiership?
Me? Prime Minister? Yes, of course. Well, I mean, of course, it's the only position for a man of my talents. I'll tell the Chancellor exactly where he can stick his flipping income tax.
Well, it'll be difficult, Prime Minister, but I'll get to work on it right away. Will there be anything else?
Yes, don't just sit there on your dispatch box. Get me to White House on the hotline. I want to have a word with Dick.
Mr. Prime Minister, that's only to be used in an emergency.
This is an emergency. I want to tell him his new ambassador is persona non grateful. He better send someone more suitable.
Who do you suggest, sir?
Well, how about Recco Welch? I wouldn't mind chatting her up.
Yes, sir, I'll see to it. Oh, and what about the strike of the Rope Makers Union? How are you going to deal with that?
Tell them to get knotted. What's that shocking row outside? I thought this was a high-class neighbourhood.
Oh, it's just a minor demonstration, Prime Minister. Some young woman or other has chained herself to the railings, and she says if you don't agree to see her, she'll take all her clothes.
Well, that's not fair. That's not playing the game. Will she take her clothes off if I do see her?
I shouldn't be surprised. She's a very unconventional young lady. Rather the hippie type.
Well, I don't mind a bit of bounce round the bottom. Send her in.
Mr. Prime Minister, I've come to number 10 Downing Street because I wanted to meet you in the flesh.
The feeling is mutual, my dear. Is that you, Millie?
I'm the Honourable Millicent Smith.
Not too honourable, I hope?
And I represent the cause of the underprivileged members of my sex. Mr. Prime Minister, what are you doing about Britain's fallen women?
Well, I try not to trip over them.
Mr. Prime Minister...
Oh, come off it, Millie. I got a Christian name, haven't I?
Oh, all right, Harold.
Arthur. It's Arthur.
Well, I'll never get used to it. All the Prime Ministers I ever knew were called Harold.
But I'm the leader of our country. No one can forget my name. Arthur Cog.
Today, change to the confidence oils from Mobil.
Mobil motor oils exceed the warranty requirements of every leading car manufacturer in the world. That's confidence.
And they carry the SABS mark of approval. That's confidence.
Mobil motor oils are right for your car. Change to them today with confidence.
Motor with Mobil and smile, smile. Motor with Mobil and smile.
Mr. Frog, I'm glad you dropped into the Institute.
Yes, well, I've done my 6 weeks hard labour and I've come for my diploma.
Diploma? Oh, my dear sir, those things aren't worth the paper they're printed on.
Well, why don't you use a better class of paper?
No. You see, Mr. Clog, here at the Institute, we believe in evaluating a man's individual capabilities by, well, a careful study of his work. And then we find a suitable position for him.
Oh, I see. So, you've already fixed me up with the 5,000 a year job. When do I start programming computers or computing programmers?
Well, actually, Mr. Grog, I feel that your potential future lies in the field of systems processing. Mm-hmm. And I've found an excellent opportunity for you as a data correlator.
Oh. Well, I'd rather set my heart on being a computer boffin or a business tycoon or even Prime Minister.
No, I do assure you you'll have a wonderful career as a data correlator.
Yes. Well, I don't know what my wife's going to say about that.
Arthur, what is a data correlator?
Oh, it's a wonderful career, Doreen. They fixed me up with an important job at the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. I'm going to be very happy there.
Well, as long as you don't have to handle any crabs and lobsters, you know shellfish doesn't agree with you.
No. This is an executive post.
What's the salary like?
Well, to start with, it'll be about the same as I was getting at the Public Works. But the opportunities are tremendous.
But Arthur, what what does a data correlator actually do?
Well, love, the way they explained it to me is there's a lot of these forms, you see. Now, I take them out of the in basket, detach the counterfoil, bash it with a rubber stamp, then pass it into the out basket.
When your car is switched off, it's in danger from combustion acid corrosion. Mobil brings you a new petrol that neutralizes combustion acid and guards the power in your engine. The world's first petrol to fight combustion acid. Mobil Power Guard Petrol.
From the entertainment centers of the world, from the studios of London, Paris, New York, Brussels, Toronto, Berlin, Sydney, and Hollywood, each week Mobil South Africa brings you the stars of show business in Theatre International.
This is Playhouse 90. From the stages and studios, producers and playwrights of the world, the makers of Philips tablets, Insto eye drops, and Stern's pine tar and honey bring you the week's finest entertainment, Playhouse 90. This week, Playhouse 90 presents Those in Peril by John Tarrant. All too unhappily, the hijacking of aeroplanes has become an almost daily occurrence. John Tarrant's gripping radio play, Those in Peril, deals with another kind of hijacking. For it tells of how a retired naval commander and his friend set out one early morning to board the commander's yacht, the Vanessa. Once aboard the craft, they had a surprise awaiting them. It was in the nature of a man named Skelly and his girlfriend. They had attacked and killed the owner of a petrol filling station and made their escape with a considerable sum of money in a stolen car, and then in the cover of darkness, they rowed across and commandeered the Vanessa. What happens when the commander and his friend are pressed at the point of a gun into acting as crew makes for exciting and gripping listening. Set in the waters of Northern Ireland, John Tarrant's radio play has been produced for Playhouse 90 by Michael Silver.
Here's another on-the-spot Philips tablets interview. Listen to this.
Excuse me, madam. I notice you've just selected a bottle of Philips tablets from the shelf there. Would you mind telling me why you're buying them?
In our home, we like highly spiced meals. In fact, it's got to the stage when we very seldom have ordinary plain cooking. And everything is highly spiced. And consequently, sometimes one suffers, to say the least. And then one needs Philips tablets in the home for the relief that they bring after these rather exotic meals.
Do you know, I know that feeling.
Yes, one almost has a food hangover. There's a burning feeling in the stomach.
I see. And so then what do you do?
Well, then the first thing we do is raid the Philips tablets before we go to bed, and the relief is almost instant.
Yes, always keep Phillips tablets handy. Remember, for on-the-spot relief from indigestion, you can't beat Phillips tablets.
George, are we going to make it?
Just about. If we keep rowing at this speed, the tide's running out fast. She'll be sitting in the mud in 20 minutes.
We can pump her dry when we're underway. Oh, what a time to set off.
It's your fault now. It must be in the beer talking.
Yeah.
The forecast isn't all that good, and if we'd waited a couple of days...
Can't waste these 5 days. We don't often get good sailing weather so early in the season.
Good sailing weather?
Cheer up, man. We'll get a breeze to blow the mist away at sunrise. Here's Vanessa. She looks black in this light. Easy does it. Now, let's have the painter. Yeah, and now the rest of the gear. Come on.
Hey, go steady with that duffel bag. It's got the bottles in.
First things first. Put your weight. Now, pass yours.
Right.
Oh, we haven't got a lot of time. Better motor out straight away and get everything shipshape when there's a few fathoms of water under her keel.
Okay. Will you see to the bow mooring while I switch on the navigation lights and get the engine going?
Aye. Comes in useful, the old iron topsail at a time like this.
True.
It's as black as ink down here. Where did they leave the torch? Starboard locker.
Is this what you're looking for?
Oh, well, what on earth is that?
You've got yourself some passengers, Captain. But don't start a song and dance about it. Do you see this?
I can't see anything with that damn torch in my eyes. What have you got there? A gun?
Pointing straight at your guts. So keep your voice down.
How did you get aboard? What do you want?
We walked out at low tide without getting our feet wet.
We?
Thelma, nip up and see what the other one is doing. Don't get between me and the owner, just in case he tries to be clever.
Okay.
Oh, I sense a female stowaway.
He's right up in the bows. Hasn't heard a thing.
Good. You came down to start the engine, Captain. But I think we'll try to slip away without waking half the country. Up you go, and don't forget.
What is this? Piracy?
Something like that. Now call your crew aft and no tricks. Do you hear what I said?
George!
Aye?
Give me a hand here, will you?
Right. Ready to cast off for it. Who the devil's that?
A couple of young pirates. One of them's waving a pistol about, so take it easy.
That's very good advice, George. Just do as you're told and nobody will get hurt.
Well, what are you trying to do?
The idea is to put to sea quickly and quietly before the tide runs out of this harbor. So while the captain here goes forward to bend on the jib, you can get started on the main. Give them a hand, Thelma. Take the other torch.
What shall I do?
Nip down to the cabin and bring up the nattens. Then help George to get the tiers off the mainsail. You two, you heard what I said. Now get started.
Why don't you use the engine, mister?
Don't ask me a lot of silly questions. We're going out with no lights showing and under sail.
Is this what you wanted?
George will show you how to lace them in. Now get a move on. The sky is getting lighter there in the east. Ready?
Yes, so am I.
Let's go for it. Thelma, come aft here and stand by that stern mooring. I'm going out on the port tack. All right, you two.
haul away. Now, let go, Thelma. Now haul on that jib sheet and make it fast. That's more like it.
George, come and put your weight on the boom. That's got her. Now the lacing.
You're not going to let him get away with this, are you?
Not on your life. But I don't want a bullet in the belly. I don't want to damage the boat. When it gets a bit lighter, we might have a chance to jump him.
All right, break it up and come forward.
Aye, aye, Captain. Come on, George. We're shipping before the mast this trip.
I'd like to get my hands on that young puppy. I'd teach him to play at pirates.
I must say, he seems to know his way around.
He's holding his tack too long. We're getting very close to the Scotchman.
Hell's bells. We can't let him go ahead with that.
Ready about.
Nicely timed. Must have sailed here many a day before. Look out, George. You're standing on the jib sheet.
Lee-o.
Well, that gives him a clear run to the open sea. It's comforting to feel that the new management is fairly competent.
New management? I'd like to wring his scraggy neck.
Later, George, later. In the meantime, let's get the foredeck tidied up and wait to see what good things the dawn will bring.
Thelma, did you get the radio?
Yes, here.
Good. See if you can pick up a weather report. I'd like to know what we're likely to run into. It can't be far up 5:30 now, till they start on the weather. I keep the volume down. I can't see very much, so I'm having to use my ear.
Isn't it dangerous blinding along in the fog like this?
It's only a bit of mist. In fact, it's lifting already. I'd like to be well away by the time it's clear. Now brace up with that weather report.
Okay. Here.
The colder and drier weather to reach Northern Ireland and Wales.
Just caught the end of it.
The forecast for tomorrow and Wednesday is of a brighter, showery weather all over the British Isles, and fresh northwesterly winds bringing temperatures to a little below the seasonal average. Now, before we take you over to breakfast special, here is a police message.
Had enough?
No, leave it.
Shortly before 10 o'clock last night, the owner of a petrol filling station in Ballynahinth, County Down, was attacked and severely injured by two masked raiders, one of whom was believed to be a woman. The thieves were interrupted, but succeeded in making their escape with a considerable sum of money using a stolen car, a blue Klein 2000, registered number AMN 101C. Motorists in Northern Ireland are asked to inform the nearest branch of the Royal Ulster Constabulary immediately if they have any information about this car or its occupants. But members of the public are warned to avoid tackling the criminals who are known to be carrying firearms. Another message has just come in. The injured man died in hospital at 4 o'clock this morning. His attackers are therefore wanted for...
I told you not to hit him too hard.
I didn't mean to hit him at all, but the silly old git made a dive for the door. I can't understand why he croaked. He must have had a thin skull or a weak heart or something.
Now the whole country will be looking for us.
I'll certainly be looking for a man and a woman, but that gives him $500,000 of each to choose from. There were no descriptions, thanks to you and your man.
How about the car?
Ah, now you know why I was so fussy about the plates and the license, and why I made straight for the sea. We wouldn't have got 50 miles by road in daylight.
I feel sort of small and helpless out here. The sea's too big and cold and empty. We could have ditched the car in the city and knocked off another one.
Every time you knocked off a car, somebody goes squealing to the police and out goes the number and description.
And what about when you go for a sail in somebody else's boat?
And now that we've got a bit of sea room, let's just check up on that point, shall we? Killip, I'd like to have a word with you.
I see you know my name.
You've left enough letters lying about the cabin. Commander L.C. Killip, RN.
I'm glad you made yourself at home.
Did you hear that broadcast?
Some of it.
Enough to get into your nut that I won't be slow to use a gun if I have to.
I realized that as soon as I saw you.
All right, then. Now you know what you're up against. Let's have some of the background. You made a very early start this morning. When are you expected back?
10 days to a fortnight.
Are you trying to take the mickey?
Not at all. I'm telling you the truth.
Where were you planning to go?
Port St. Mary, Isle of Man.
The Isle of Man? Why?
George Brightson's wife and my sister went there for a week's holiday last Saturday. We were going across to join them.
Thelma, have a look in those bags they humped aboard. They're on the bunks in the cabin.
Okay.
10 days to a fortnight before they start getting curious. If you're telling the truth, that could be a bit of luck. On the other hand, if you don't turn up in the Isle of Man sometime tomorrow... Have you worked out your course?
Not yet. At least, not exactly.
Yeah, I'd say southeast by south after we clear Skelmartin Light at a rough guess.
Something like that.
That'll do for a start. We don't want anybody ashore to see us heading in the wrong direction, do we? We can always set a new course when we're out of sight of land.
Food, drink, and oilskins, mainly drink. But there's fresh bread, butter, and plenty of tin stuff.
Where are your clothes? You're not going to wear those rags for a fortnight?
We sent them on to the hotel luggage in advance. Forecast was a bit dodgy.
Oh, that checks. Anyway, the food problem is nicely solved.
Is that why you didn't take her out before we came aboard? No rations?
Do you think I'm a fool? Would you take a 5-tonner you'd never seen before out through narrow waters at night without using the engine? I wanted a few hours of daylight to find my way around. If you hadn't come blundering aboard, we could have lain here quietly all day and slipped away after dark tonight.
Well, if you'd chosen almost any other boat in the harbour, it would have worked out like that. The owners only come down a weekend.
Don't rub it in. What have you got to drive her?
Super Watkin diesel.
How fast will it push her along?
4 knots, maybe 5.
How much fuel are you carrying?
Up for about 24 hours motoring if you don't push her.
You can start up and show me her paces in a minute or two. Where do you keep your charts?
In the locker under the cabin table.
See if you can find them, Thelma.
Do you mind telling me where you're taking us?
I'll tell you one thing, and you can pass it on to your shipmate. The less you know about us, where we come from, where we're going, what we look like, and how we're dressed, the better chance you've got of seeing your families one of these days in Port St. Mary. Do I make myself clear?
Perfectly.
Well, just explain that to old laughing boy up there in the bows, and stay forward until I'm ready for one of you to start the engine.
I found the charts.
Bring them up, and you can have your first lesson in sailing and navigation.
What's that?
A ship, and it's heading straight for us.
What do you expect in weather like this? We're not carrying any lights.
Hadn't you better show some lights? They might steam right into us.
There'll be no lights. What's that? That's the answer. Here, hand me that foghorn.
It's over there, just hanging by the starboard bunk.
Oh, hurry, for Pete's sake.
I've got it.
If only I knew where that noise came from.
Here's the foghorn. That noise seems all around us.
No, it's come from straight ahead. Can't see any lights. Let's give him a signal in return. Port tack, 2 blasts then.
Well, I never hear that over the noise of the sea. Dan, switch some lights on or turn round or something before they run us down. We'll all be killed, please.
Shut up and listen.
It's coming closer. Oh, Dan! We're going to run straight into it.
I told you to shut up. Killip, can you see anything from the pulpit?
Another thing. The switch for our navigation lights is on the bulkhead amidships.
All right, Thelma. We'll have to take the risk of being recognized. Go below and switch them on.
There's your masthead light. Fine on the starboard bow.
Oh, which way is she steering?
Red. I can see red. She's crossing your bows. Heave to, man, or you'll run straight into her. Heave to, I say. Ahoy!
idiots, the rotten, stinking fools. You all right, Thelma?
I suppose so. The switch. The light switch. I couldn't find it. Now,
Don't worry, we're all right now. We don't need the rotten lights. Now, what filthy, stinking luck. Passing the ship as close as that outside the shipping lanes.
Don, please show some lights now. We nearly after been smashed to pieces.
No, we've got to slip away from here without being seen.
But that ship, I heard a man shout.
Yes, I'm afraid somebody on that rotten hulk caught sight of us.
What happens now?
How do I know? Some dozy lookout spotted us at the last minute, so what? I don't think he could see clear enough to pick out the registration number on the mainsail.
But they might report what happened just now.
I suppose it'll go into the log. But that's not my worry, Thal. The trouble is that sooner or later somebody's going to wake up to the fact that this tub hasn't sailed into Port St. Mary, and then there'll be a general search. The less they have to go on, the longer it'll take them to find her.
Oh, if only we could get clear of this lousy fog. I hate this rotten, wet, slimy...
Steady, Thelma, steady. All on that port jib sheet. Hold it. Good. Head's coming round. Give me a hand to get her back on course. Now, I wonder what the cops are doing.
Bangor Police?
This is Curran, Donegal. Can I speak to Sergeant Burnside, please?
Burnside speaking. How are you, Michael?
I'm in grand form, considering the time of day.
Well, by this and by that, I've not had my breakfast yet.
You know the BBC was putting out a police message about the hold-up in Ballyanch on the 6 o'clock news?
Yes, what about it?
A car like the one that was stolen, a blue 2-litre Klein, it was left in an old quarry near here last night. It might never have been noticed if Tim O'Meara hadn't been up there at sunrise looking at his sheep.
How about the number? Is it the same car?
Well, the number plates and the license have all been taken off, but I wrote down the chassis number. Now where did I put it?
Come on, man, come on.
Here we are, 629 FAU 1124.
1124. I'll check on that right away. But if this is the car they stole, why would they take it to Donegal?
Well, now, I was asking myself that same question.
And what did you get for an answer?
Well, I thought that if those two that we're after came from the city, they might be planning to lie up in a cottage somewhere quiet and out of the way. Well, in a place the size of this, for instance, that means I'll be hearing about it in no time at all.
They could be daft enough to try it, I suppose. But even so, why would they drive into a battle like this with all Ulster to hide in?
Well, I was asking myself about that, too.
All right, let's hear. I've nothing else to do except be eating my breakfast.
It's a bit early in the season, but we've already got more than a dozen boats lying in the harbour. Some of the bigger ones have got proper cabins and bunks and galleys, where a man could make himself very snug while he was on the run.
Until the owners come aboard.
Most of them are weekend sailors. They drive down on Friday and go back on Monday morning. If he chose the right boat last night, he could reckon on 3 days undisturbed.
True enough. How long will it take you to search everything in the harbour?
If we get a move on, we can walk out to most of the bigger craft at this state of the tide. Give me an hour and a half from now.
All right. When you get to the yacht club, try to find out if any boat, big or small, put to sea during the night. When was high tide?
Just after 2. There's usually enough water to float the bigger craft for a couple of hours on either side of that.
And that would give them from about midnight last night to 4 this morning.
Depending on the size of the boat and where she was moored exactly, of course.
True. All right. Ring back as soon as you know for sure. And, Michael, don't be sticking your neck out. If you do find these people, remember that one man has been killed already. They've got nothing to lose, and I don't want my sister a widow.
Oh, man, neither do I. Neither do I.
Look how bloodshot they are. Mind you, after last night, I'm not surprised.
You know that feeling when your eyes have taken a beating? They feel sore and tired, and they look the way they feel, red and unattractive. But just 2 drops of Insto, and in seconds your eyes feel wonderfully cool and refreshed. Don't take your eyes for granted. Protect them with Insto eye drops.
Quiet!
You should go and see a doctor.
You can't take every cough to a doctor, but you can take Stern's Pine Tar and Honey. Stern's Pine Tar and Honey is a scientific blend of the finest natural ingredients which brings soothing relief to troublesome and disturbing coughs. Stern's Pine Tar and Honey, made like a doctor's prescription.
He might get a chance in a minute or two if he decides to use the engine. He'll have to let one of us sleep below to swing a starting handle.
Thought it'd be easier in daylight. I doubt if either of them got any sleep last night.
Very little, I should think. Sooner or later, they're going to get drowsy.
The girl might even be seasick with a bit of luck. The wind's rising. I reckon if we play it nice and quietly, they might get careless as the days wear on.
Well, I hope you're right. I wish I knew where he was going.
Why? What difference does that make?
Well, you heard the radio. He's killed one man already. Wherever he lands, he's not going to leave a couple of witnesses behind to raise the alarm. When he's quite sure he doesn't need any more help with the sails or the engine, our company will no longer be required.
2 more murders.
The point is, if he's steering for England, he won't risk crossing the Irish Sea with only the girl to help him. But he obviously knows these coastal waters very well. If he starts to make for some little cove not very far from here, we might have to move fast.
All right, Philip, let's try out your motor. George, you go right forward to the pulpit and sit down. Thelma, you go into the cabin as far forward as you can get.
Why?
You'll see why in a minute.
If you want me to try the motor, I'll have to have that board lifted.
Lift it then and put it down slowly. Quick movements make me nervous. I wouldn't try it if I were you. Now that's better. Just let me see you turn that lever to the starting position again.
Yeah.
All right, I got it. Now what?
The starting handle is just inside the cabin.
Go and swing it then. But don't forget to let go. Thelma, get well forward to starboard. If he tries to be clever, put a bullet in his back. I won't be in the line of fire. What next?
Now this goes to the running position, and that's a lot. Throttle levers here.
Now let's go up. Now let's have that board back. No, on second thoughts, I'll do it myself. George, I told you to stay forward. One more step and you'll be poisoning the fish.
All right.
Don, there's a horrible smell of oil. I'm beginning to feel sick. Can't I come out of here?
Yes, in half a minute. Philip, what do you carry for seasickness?
Nothing, except rum.
All right, get forward. You can come out now, Thelma. Stand here and get some air on your face.
Oh, the waves seem to be getting bigger. Is it going to be very rough?
Don't worry, Thel. It's just the tide mostly. When we double the point of air, she'll ride a lot easier. Now, look, I may have to ask you to take the helm for a few minutes from time to time while I look at the chart.
Me?
Now, come here and get the feel of it.
Oh, couldn't one of those two do it instead? I feel awful.
I wouldn't trust either of them further than I could spit. Besides, if you've got a job to do, it'll take your mind off things. Now, just watch these sails for a minute. When you see them begin to shiver like this, you're sailing too close to the wind. Now, let her head fall away. Like that. But not too far.
Is it safe when it leans over like that?
Oh, she won't come to any harm. Now, go on, try. You'll soon get the hang of it. Brace yourself over here on the weather side.
You're carrying too much canvas for this wind.
Now, what have you two been cooking up now?
Nothing. She'll ride a lot easier in the storm jib with a couple of reefs in the mainsail.
Now, you can bend on the storm jib if you like. Leave the reefing until later.
Yeah. Come on, George. Let go of the jib halyard while I haul her in and stow away. I think we're in for a bit of a blow.
Come aft. I want a word with you.
Yes?
I've got a proposition for you. Thelma, I'd like you to hear this.
I'm listening.
And so am I. What's your proposition?
Your boat is too small for this sort of cat-and-mouse game. If we're going to be cooped up together for some time, we might as well make ourselves comfortable. Unless, of course, you want to spend all your time squatting before the mast without food or shelter.
I don't. Well, what have you got in mind?
If you and George give me your word that you'll work the ship the way I want it, without trying to slip anything across me, you can use the cabin and the galley, take your share of the rations, and stand watch until we make port.
You're trying to put us on parole, is that it?
Yes, that's the word. Parole.
What are you offering in exchange?
I told you. You can have the run of the ship.
And at the end of the voyage, when you've made your landfall,
you get your property back undamaged. You can sail away provided you promise to steer for the Isle of Man and keep your mouth shut when you get there.
You take our word for that?
Yeah, why not? Supposed to be a naval officer, aren't you? You've got your Queen's regulations and Admiralty instructions and some sort of reputation. After all, you're not like me. You're a gentleman. A man of honor.
Are you asking me to trust you? To believe that when you're safely ashore, you'll push off and leave behind 2 witnesses who might start the hunt for you all over again?
Why not? If I'm trusting you to take your trick at the helm...
That's not quite the same thing, is it? You've got to have at least 1 pair of skilled hands helping you sail the boat. By the look of you, you'll be going to sleep at your feet very shortly. But once you're running into a quiet haven somewhere in England...
So you won't play ball?
I don't think I can. As you said yourself, I've got some sort of a code to hang on to. If you my word, I will have to keep it. But what do you believe in? From what I've seen and heard so far, you make your own rules as you go along. Anything you happen to want, you take. Anybody who stands in your way gets trampled on.
You're standing in my way right now, Killip.
But I've got something you can't take by force, or you wouldn't be talking. That's the snag about your way of doing business. It's all right when you're cock of your own little dunghill. But as soon as you have to rely on other people's cooperation, well, your methods don't exactly inspire confidence, do they?
You know, I believe you're wrong about me needing a skilled crew. I reckon I could handle her by myself from now on, if I had to. Thelma will soon get the hang of things, and then we can manage without you and your half-section there. I think you've made a bit of a mistake turning down a perfectly fair offer like that. You might live long enough to regret it.
Don, I'm not sure that I could...
What was that?
Sounded like a fuel shortage.
You said there was enough oil aboard for 24 hours motoring. If you've been trying to slip something across me, Killip...
I haven't slipped anything across you. There's a full reserve tank under your feet. Every couple of hours, you have to pump a gallon or 2 up to the gravity feed in the engine compartment.
You'd better not try. All right, get pumping then before it dies on us.
I thought you said you could handle her by yourself from now on. Why don't you get your friend Thelma to do the pumping?
Don't try to be clever, Killip. Just get on with the job. And while you're at it, you can show me the reserve tank and the dipstick. I want to check the oil level myself. From now on, we're going to keep our eyes on everything you do. Do you hear that, Thelma? In future, we take nothing on trust. Nothing at all.
Have you ever taken anything on trust in your life?
Don't go at me too far. You carry on with your pumping.
Oh, Don. I wonder what they're doing on the mainland.
Here's another on-the-spot Phillips Tablets interview. Listen to this.
Excuse me, madam. I notice you've just selected a bottle of Phillips Tablets from the shelf there. Would you mind telling me why you're buying them?
In our home, we like highly spiced meals. In fact, it's got to the stage when we very seldom have ordinary plain cooking. And everything is highly spiced. And consequently, sometimes one suffers, to say the least. And then one needs Phillips Tablets in the home for the relief that they bring after these rather exotic meals.
Do you know, I know that feeling.
Yes, one almost has a food hangover. There's a burning feeling in the stomach.
I see. And so then what do you do?
Well, then the first thing we do is raid the Phillips Tablets before we go to bed, and the relief is almost instant.
Yes, always keep Phillips Tablets handy. Remember, for on-the-spot relief from indigestion, you can't beat Phillips Tablets.
This is Curran Donaghadee.
Constable Curran Donaghadee, indeed. Why aren't you out and about? You think we'll catch the killers with you sitting on your lump at Donaghadee substation?
But Sergeant...
Now listen to me, Michael. You'll have to jump about a bit. You got a couple of murders on your hands.
I know, Sergeant, I know.
My telephone has never stopped ringing since I reported that you found that stolen car. The head constable and a couple of patrol cars are already on their way. The head constable is convinced that the killers are still somewhere in your area. Did you check up and see if anything sailed during the night?
Yes, Sergeant, I did.
Well?
Well, there's one boat that needs investigating.
Oh, there is? What boat?
A 5-ton cabin cruiser named Vanessa.
Vanessa? And who does she belong to?
Commander Killip, a retired naval officer. He and his friends were planning to sail across to the Isle of Man.
Go on.
Well, Sergeant, the Vanessa was there last night and she's gone this morning.
With the owner aboard?
I don't know, Sergeant. But nobody saw or heard them go during the night. They must have caught the morning tide.
I see. Have you tried their homes?
Yes, Sergeant. They're both locked up.
What about the neighbours?
Well, the neighbours say that the women folk went across by air from Aldergrove on Saturday, leaving the men to follow in the boat.
Now, there may be nothing to it, but it'll have to be checked. Have you got their holiday address?
Just a minute. Yeah, here it is. It's the Ballivale Hotel, Port St. Mary. That's B-A-L...
All right, Michael, I've got the name. So that's 2 empty houses where the killers could be hiding?
You think?
Let's get with it, Michael. Now, what about the rest of the boarding houses? Will there be many unoccupied premises at this time of the year?
Oh, no, Sergeant. Now, all the boarding houses and hotels are beginning to open for the season, but some of the sailing people have cottages that are still locked up.
Right, you check them. And check that naval commander's place and his friends.
Right, Sergeant.
Now, don't do anything on your own. Be careful. Oh, by the way, what about that camping site? You'd better take a look at the caravans.
I will. How long do you think it is before the head constable will be down?
It should be an hour or two. And while you're waiting, just get word round to the tradespeople, the baker, the milkman, the postman, the lot. Tell them to keep their eyes open and report at once if they see anything suspicious. Maybe somebody will be buying extra food. These people have got to eat.
Yes, Sergeant.
Oh, by the way, Michael, have you spoken to the Coast Guard about the naval commander's vessel? What was it called again?
The Vanessa. No, I haven't, not yet.
Well, don't for the time being. Leave that to me. I shall want a description of her.
Yeah, I've got it here in front of me.
Okay, shoot.
She's a sloop-rigged 4-berth cruiser, hull painted blue, upper works white. Overall length about 24 feet with an 8-foot beam. She carries 4 sails, main, genoa, jib, and storm jib, and a Super Watkin diesel engine. Inboard, of course.
You've got that off rather pat, Michael.
Well, Sergeant, I'm reading it from the Yacht Club Regatta News.
Now then, sloop. 4 berths, 24...
Oh, excuse me a minute, Sergeant. Constable Terry's just walked in. He's got a message.
Thanks.
Now, I wonder what... Well, now, that's interesting. Are you still there, Sergeant?
Of course I am, Michael. Where do you think I'd be?
Vanessa's dinghy has just been found drifting off New Island.
Vanessa's dinghy? Has it indeed? Now, that's very interesting. And where would you expect it to be this morning?
Well, if Commander Killip was just going out for a day at the fishing, he'd leave it tied to his moorings here.
But if he was sailing for a holiday in the Isle of Man?
He'd take it with him. Towing, of course.
The painter could have slipped off by the cleat by accident.
Oh, I can't see that happening to Killip. He's as pusser as they come. No, I bet you there's something funny going on when Vanessa sailed this morning.
It'd be dark, aye?
Aye, a bit of a struggle, maybe. Or Killip might even have let the painter go deliberately to draw attention to his boat.
Right. Leave Vanessa and the Coast Guard to me. You go down and see if the dinghy tells you anything else. Then report to the head constable as soon as he gets there. And remember, Michael, don't get yourself shot.
Wish I could get a glimpse of the compass. Where do you think he's making for?
I reckon he's been steering just about due east since we lost sight of land.
Due east? Where will that take us?
Oh, somewhere in Cumberland, Whitehaven or Maryport. I've been trying to remember if we're likely to meet any shipping lanes in daylight.
Not likely, man. Not cross-channel traffic, anyway. The Stranraer-Larne route is well away to the north.
And Larry to Holyhead, too far south. Yes, you never know. There's always traffic between Belfast and Heysham, or the big stuff sailing into or out of Liverpool.
That won't help. You'll get plenty of warning. We'll be herded below with a gun in our ribs as soon as he sees smoke. Why the devil did he have to choose Vanessa?
Because he knows a taut ship when he sees one. What I can't understand is why he chose to go to Donegal in the first place.
I've been thinking about that. Notice how he took us out to the harbour in the dark. He must know those waters like the back of his hand.
You think he's a local boy?
If he is, I don't know him. I've lived there all my life, and I've been messing about in boats since I was big enough to crawl over a gunwale. What does the girl call him? Don?
Yeah. And the girl's name is Thelma. Mean anything?
Donald. Wait a minute. A boy from one of the villages. Carrador, was it, or Ballywalter? One who joined the Navy straight from school and was dishonourably discharged a few years ago. Of course, Donald Scally was his name, Scally.
Oh, must have been before my time.
He's changed a lot in the last 10 years. I used to see him every day. He almost lived in the harbour when he was a kid. It's strange, I didn't recognise him.
Well, wherever he learned his trade, he can certainly handle Vanessa. I wonder what he's likely to do when he makes his landfall.
Put us over the side in the dinghy like Fletcher Christie.
Dinghy? Have a look astern.
Oh, what do you mean? Good grief, where is it?
When these stowaways turned up waving guns about and we were driven forward, well, I took a chance. I let the painter go.
But why? What was the point?
At the time, all I had in mind was that when our dinghy was found drifting about the harbour, it would start somebody thinking. And after that broadcast...
It's something of a long shot. How are these two going to get ashore without the dinghy?
Unless they tie up at some quayside as bold as brass, or start another police search by pinching someone else's dinghy from her moorings. They're going to need us to help them beach Vanessa in some quiet cove.
Then what?
It might turn out to be a good thing in the long run.
What do you mean?
Well, don't you see, man? The longer they need us, the longer we'll be likely to stay alive.
Feeling better, Thelma?
A bit better. Still a bit seasick.
Oh, she's still pretty lively, but I don't think it'll get much worse. It's been back into the west and blowing hard all morning. We couldn't get better conditions for a fast crossing. What about something to eat?
Ugh, no. I couldn't face food.
Well, I'm just about starving. Do you think you could take the helm again for a couple of minutes while I nip below?
But, Don, how about those two?
There hasn't been a bleat out of them for hours.
But I'm frightened.
What of?
But supposing they...
They won't do a thing. If they were to make the slightest move towards you, all you gotta do is let out a yell and I'll be back on deck before they could get anywhere near the cockpit.
All right. But please, Don, be as quick as you can.
I will. But remember to keep her as she is with the wind in your right ear.
I'll try. Those two frighten me.
So Loverboy's gone below and left his Thelma at the helm.
He's taken a chance in the sea. You take a glance at her. Still a bit green about the gills.
Yeah, she doesn't look very confident, does she?
No, can you blame her? Running before this wind, I'm not happy either. Needs a cool hand at the helm.
Unless what?
We might be lucky enough to catch him off balance while the wind... I've got an idea. Move towards me, but don't make the girl suspicious.
How?
Well, just come over as though you're giving me a hand to tidy up the floor deck.
But she'll be watching us all the time.
That's the idea. I wanted to watch us all the time without calling Skelly. If we can hold her attention by moving about nice and quietly, working well forward, safely away from the cockpit, She might easily forget to keep an eye on what really matters, the wind.
It's a pity we're not sailing close hauled.
Close hauled?
But don't you see? We could let this halyard go with a run and drop the mainsail on her nut. That would upset her little apple cart, all right.
Oh, so it would. George, you're a cunning old pirate. Is there any reason why we couldn't do it as she is now?
One very good reason. The sail would go overboard.
What is it?
John?
She's calling, Scott.
Not to worry. Just carry on. Just come forward and coil that.
Don? Don? Can you come here a minute?
Well, what is it?
They're up to something. I can tell by their faces.
Whatever you do, don't let them come aft. Oh, they're all right there. You can't get any mischief at the pulpit.
Are you sure? What are they doing with those ropes?
They're only messing about getting everything tidy. As long as they don't mess about with the main halyard. That one there.
Well, it's all right for you. I've not...
I know. But you can't fix the grub because you feel sick. So if you can't take the helm for a few minutes, how do we eat?
All right. Please don't be long.
I'll be as quick as I can.
He's gone below. But all right, and he tipped her off about the main halyard. I saw him pointing out the cleat.
He's smart, this joker. George, this may be wishful thinking, but I believe she's letting the wind creep round the stern.
You're right. We're running by the lee.
The $64,000 question is whether the boyfriend will spot what's happening before it's too late.
If she does get us into a Chinese jibe, goodness knows what'll happen with this wind, the reefs.
I hate to see this, but if she looks like letting that boom swing over, I'm not going to stop her, even if it rips the flaming mast right out.
But how are you going to play it?
If she does jibe, there could be half a minute of complete chaos. If we're lucky, they'd both be sprawling on their backs with loose gear flying all over the cockpit and cabin. As long as we're braced ready for it, we ought to have a few seconds' grace to scramble aft and take over. But watch out for the boom.
How about those guns of theirs?
If either of them is still in a position to use a pistol, we'll just have to get Vanessa back on course, sort out the damage and wait for the next chance.
Assuming there is one.
Aye. The girl boobs this time, you'll never leave her alone again at the helm, that's for sure. George, I think she's going.
Oh, what a horrible thing to do to a boat.
Don! Don, quickly! I can't hold her!
What the devil are you doing?
Mustn't capsize. Get a grip, George.
Right.
Hold on. Pray. Together.
I've got to pull me together first.
Take the boat hook. Keep your head down or the boom will break your neck.
Right.
Don! Don, you're hurt!
That's the way you come, little fool. Let go that tiller.
Oh, watch out! They're right behind you!
What's that? I saw your chance, did you? Not quite quick enough, Killip. You're a bit old for this game.
The boat hook. Throw
Oh,
it.
Don! Look out!
Now then, Mr. Skelly.
I'll break your back for this, you cunning old swine.
Now we'll see about that.
Thelma, use your gun. Use your gun.
I can't! He's hurt me!
Where'd you carry that pistol, you little monster?
Take your filthy hands off me! Don!
Don's busy.
George, I can't hold this slippery rat. He's going for his gun.
Right, another touch of the boat hook is called for. Then tie that.
No! No, you're killing him!
I'll shoot you, fool.
Go to boom. Get down, man.
It's hit Don's head! You've killed him!
He's out cold. Good, here's his pistol. Now, girl, hand over your gun.
I'll kill you! I'll kill you!
You don't stop that filthy noise. You'll get yourself tossed overboard now.
I've got it. It's in the bag. Here's her gun.
You rotten swines! That's mine! Give it back to me!
Shut up! Take her below to look after her boyfriend. You'd better swab that cut on his head.
Hope he doesn't die on us. It looks pretty groggy to me.
I reckon that swinging boom just about saved our skins. Another couple of seconds and we'd both have been shot.
I'll take him below and see what I can do for him. You sure you can manage up there alone?
Aye, come up as soon as you can, but bring the knives out of the galley. I don't trust that wench out of my sight. Oh, my saints, what a horrible shambles. Did I say this was a torch?
What's that?
Helicopter. I wonder if it could be looking for us.
Seems to be heading in this direction.
We've got to find a way to show them what we're carrying. Bring the girl up where they can see her.
Oh, come on, Calamity. Get up them stairs. Go on.
What do you want now?
That mask you were wearing at the filling station. Get it and put it on.
You know what you can do.
Come on, come on. And George, make sure they can see her.
I thought he was going to land on the truck of the mast. Did you recognize either of them?
I think the bloke sitting alongside the pilot might have been Roy McMahon, the Coast Guard. If it was, he knows Vanessa very well. Anyway, they'll both get a clear view of the wench. Saw me waving a pistol like Captain Hook.
Shall I take her below?
No, she'll stay there, out of the way. Now, George, for heaven's sake, give me a hand to clear up this horrible tangle. That chopper crew must have taken us for a shower of clumsy lubbers. I'll be ashamed to look Roy McMahon in the face.
Judging by what Roy McMahon could see from the helicopter, the deck looked in a bit of a muddle.
Muddle, Michael? Of course there'd be a muddle. There's sure to have been damage if there was a fight. Thank goodness the commander and George Brightson were all right.
Well, that's what the pilot of the chopper said, Sergeant. He said that the Vanessa had all the canvas off her, that they were motoring straight for down here.
You know, one thing worries me, Michael. That report that came through kept mentioning the girl, but they said they saw no sign of the man Skelly.
Probably below, Sergeant.
I hope to heaven they haven't keelhauled him.
You know, Sergeant, I wouldn't put it past Commander Killip to throw them both overboard if they did anything to damage his precious Vanessa.
Seems they chose the wrong boat and the wrong skipper for a spot of piracy. Mind you, all those amateur sailors your way are pirates under the skin. There she is. That's the Vanessa just coming in, isn't it?
Yes, Sergeant. Well, that's the commander waving his arms. That's Commander Killip. Commander.
Morning, Mr. Curran. Morning, Sergeant.
Morning, sir.
All right, George, throw the line. The devil's fenders hold the side. Watch out for my pig.
He's in good form, anyway.
Well, come aboard, Sergeant. Come aboard.
Thank you, sir. Anybody hurt?
Well, the girl's not much the worse for wear, but the man seems to have his head on the boom, lying below on George's bunk.
All right, Michael, we better have a stretcher. What happened to their guns, Commander? Navy helicopter said they saw you waving one about.
Yeah, they're here in the lazarette. 2 pistols, 1 box of ammunition. No, those knives are from the galley. We didn't like to leave the lady with anything sharp in case she cut herself.
Oh, has she been given trouble?
They tried to rape me, those two. You filthy apes. I'll make you pay for this.
Isn't that your real Irish, Colleen? Just lovely. I pity the psychiatrist to get you on his couch. All right, my girl.
Keep your hands off me. I can walk.
Come on, then. Come and meet the head constable. Tell him all about it. He's the great man for stories.
They're sending an ambulance right away.
Oh, good. Take charge of the lady and watch out for your eyes. Are you looking for something, Mr. Brightson?
I was just remembering that broadcast.
Oh?
The raiders made their escape with a large sum of money. When we first came aboard, where did you find them?
The girl was right forward by the small looker.
Here. The bag that holds the Jenny seems to be a lot heavier. Well, filthy lucre. The root of all evil.
Cool heavens. This would fetch us a new set of sails for every day of the year.
I'm afraid I'll have to take charge of the money, sir, much as it goes against the grain.
Oh, George, why did you have to go and dig it out while the sergeant was still here? Now you'll have to have a cut. You'll only have about 5,000 each.
And don't forget Constable Michael Curran and the head constable. He's on his way.
Before all this lovely money goes, just let me hold it for a minute, will you?
All right.
George, is that old camera of yours still in the locker?
Yes, hang on. I must say, I'd rather have a picture of you tangled up in Thelma's rigging when you were supposed to be looking for a gun.
Oh, you mutinous dog. You'll get me into trouble with the law. Now, Sergeant, you'd better be in this photograph.
All right, sir.
And we'll have you head constable yet. All right, George. You sure you've got a film in? Well, hurry up, man. What are you waiting for? Press the confounded button and let's have a bottle of beer. All this excitement makes my throat dry.
Kom aan, je pad voor. Net nou is die parkeerplek ook nog vol. Verflaks.
Is dit hoe u sommige dae voel? Hierdie daaglikse irritasies veroorsaak gou suur en slegte spysvertering. Dis wanneer u Philips tablette nodig het. Handige Philips tablette. So maklik, so gerieflik. Geen water, geen glas nie. Philips tablette reken gou af met slegte spysvertering.
It's great with the hood down, but I'm afraid the wind's ruined your hair.
It's not my hair I'm worried about, it's my eyes. They're full of dust and grit.
You know that feeling when your eyes have taken a beating? They feel sore and tired, and they look the way they feel. But just 2 drops of Insto, and in seconds your eyes feel wonderfully cool and refreshed. Don't take your precious eyes for granted. Protect them with Insto eye drops.
Shh, be quiet.
You should go and see a doctor.
You can't take every cough to a doctor, but you can take Stern's Pine Tar and Honey. Stern's Pine Tar and Honey is a scientific blend of the finest natural ingredients which brings soothing relief to troublesome and disturbing coughs. Stern's Pine Tar and Honey, made like a doctor's prescription.
We hope you've enjoyed tonight's play. Be sure to tune in next week for another theatre date with the great in Playhouse 90, brought to you for your listening pleasure from the stages and studios, producers and playwrights of the world, by your hosts, the makers of Philips Tablets and Stern's Pine Tar and Honey. So until next Wednesday's Playhouse 90, a very good night to you all.
We present The Hideous Silence by Michael Robson, a play produced in our Durban studios by Don Ridgway for the Summer Radio Play Festival. Alan Reese is played by Roger Service, Alice Laker by Pamela Perry, and Gus Laker by Tim Sutcliffe. The play, except for one scene in Natal, takes place in the mountain country of northern India. The year is 1885. The Hideous Silence.
What the devil's going
Why
on?
are we stopping?
There must be something on the track.
Oh, not another cow. I don't believe it.
You don't get cows on the line in mountain country, Mrs. Fairfax.
Then what? There's been no military activity in this part of northern India for years.
If you'll stand aside, I'll find out. You'd better stay with your wife, Captain.
What? Oh, all right.
We seem to be in trouble, gentlemen. May I help you?
We're sitting ducks, sir. That landslide's headed straight for us.
If we reverse, though, it'll miss us, driver.
Not a hope, sir. It's too much of an incline.
Well, there's only one thing for it. We must try to get out of here. Come on, give me a hand up and I'll help you shovel coal.
We'll never make it, sir.
We'll certainly never make it if we don't try. Come on, gentlemen.
Oh, we're moving.
I dare say we are. Get the rest of the luggage onto the floor, Letty. We're in for a lively ride.
But where's Mr. Reese?
With the driver, I shouldn't wonder.
Is he a railwayman?
Does he look it? Does he sound it?
Why are you shouting at me?
Because we're driving into a landslide. Brace yourself. You're back against the seat. Your legs across and hard against the other seat. Well, bravo. I see nothing amusing about this mess.
I've often thought it before, Ned, but I've never dared say it. We should have done much better if you'd gone into the Navy, like your father.
Alice, it's remarkable.
What is, Father?
What does that young man think he's doing with the village children?
He thinks he's turning them into devout little Christians. It's rather charming, really, to hear an evangelizing ditty in the lower Himalayas.
But Chael isn't Bishop Stortford. So why does he try to persuade those poor little children of Shiva that it is?
Well, Mr. Harding's paid to propagate the gospel, just as we're paid to run this hotel. Mr. Harding is fulfilling his obligations to Mother Church.
Alice, that curate is a prig and a bore. Sil, Burraped time, old friend. Why are you grinning like that?
He can't answer you. He has a mouthful of pan.
Oh, get along and hurry up about it.
Hello. May I join you?
Yes, of course, Mrs. Bellew.
Thank you. The evening's so beautiful. So peaceful. It's much more peaceful than in Simla.
Chael is, of course, for the fastidious only.
Quite right. I'm only glad that Harry discovered it. And your charming hotel.
Is there any likelihood of your husband's joining you this summer?
I think not. Someone has to hold the fort in Calcutta, and once again it's poor Harry's turn.
I can think of nothing more intolerable than Calcutta in June.
I can. Calcutta in August.
Oh, here's Seal. Mrs. Bailey, will you have a drink with us?
Oh, I don't think I shall, thank you.
Very cool. Very refreshing.
Well, all right, why not?
Why not indeed, Mrs. Bellew? Seal, a drink for the Memsahib. Gin and limes?
Lovely. Isn't it time your other guests arrived? Captain and Mrs. Fairfax and the other gentleman.
Oh, he's a Mr. Reese, and he's not a military man. I'm afraid that's all we know about him.
Do you think he plays at cards?
If he doesn't already, I'm confident that you'll soon instruct him.
You must confess there's little else to do in the evening.
There are, of course, complete editions of Scott, Dickens and Thackeray in the smoking room, should you feel so inclined.
Oh, I find it so difficult to read small print by lamplight.
Then you must hurry off to the oculist in Simla. They tell me he's very fashionable.
Mr. Laker, you are deplorable. but you shan't provoke me tonight, at least. Will that charming Mr. Ralphs be visiting you later in the season? I do hope so.
Mr. Ralphs is in Burma, we gather, doing something about King Theobald.
It's time they capture that dreadful creature.
You may be sure they will do very shortly, if Mr. Ralphs has any say in the matter.
He seemed a most capable gentleman.
And who better to judge his capabilities than you?
What can you mean, Mr. Laker?
That you're an excellent judge of men.
If I didn't know you better, I should take that remark amiss.
It's high time you stopped provoking Mrs. Bellew, Father. There's a limit to anyone's good nature.
My dear young lady, would I ever say anything offensive to you?
I'm an excellent judge of men.
Oh, well said. You deserve that, Father. You were rather hard on Mrs. Bellew this evening, Father. You will have to stop indulging yourself. She should take offence and go somewhere else. Our accounts will look rather sick.
Where else would she go? She can't afford Simla, not the life down there.
Well, that's hardly the point, is it? It's not her fault she's here on her own. Can't be much fun for her, really. Pretty girl, used to lots of attention.
Her husband has to sweat the summer out in Calcutta. The least she can do is to restrain herself from chasing everything in breeches the moment she arrives here.
Oh, you always overstate your case. She's frivolous, perhaps, and likes to flirt. But where's the harm in that?
And you aren't frivolous. You don't flirt. Sometimes I wonder why you don't. At least you're single.
I see you want to marry me off to the next bachelor to arrive here. The unfortunate Mr. Reese, perhaps?
I seem to recall that we've had this conversation before.
Every year since 1871. This is now the 14th time you've tried to urge me into matrimony.
And it's 14 years since Richard died. He would hardly have expected such a long period of mourning.
Why must you assume that I'm frantic for wedlock? Is it the only desirable state of life?
Alice, I'm over 60, and the chances are that I shan't see 70. I don't want what remains of my life to be soured by worrying about what you'll do when I'm dead.
Is my competence in question?
Of course not.
Well, then.
This place may be all very agreeable in the summer, when there are guests to liven it up. But it's bleak enough in winter and early spring. Lonely. It's the loneliness I worry about, on your account.
I'm a great deal happier here than I should be in some dreary cantonment in the plains, with nothing to do but listen to endless gossip from the officers' wives. Can you imagine how I should fare with 20 Flora Bellews for company?
But who would you have here? Seal and the servants, and an occasional visit from George Kitson? Not enough for an intelligent woman.
Isn't the intelligent woman able to make up her own mind about that?
Will you have a drink with me?
No, thank you.
Well, don't look so prim. Only my fourth this evening.
I'm sorry, I'm not the son you should have had. You wouldn't be fretting about me, and we should be able to get drunk together when conversation ran low.
I'm not sorry, and you know it. Ah, do you hear that?
The Tonga.
Must be the Fairfaxes. Seal! Chandra, get out there with the lamp. Our guests have arrived.
I tell you, we've had more excitement on that blessed railway than I saw in 2 years on the Chitral border. You should have seen that landslide. Heaven knows how long it'll be before they clear and repair the line. And I can assure you that if it hadn't been for Reese here, we should be under the rocks even now.
That's something of an exaggeration.
I promise you it isn't. Letty will bear me out.
Oh, he's right, Mr. Laker. Mr. Reese saved our lives.
Well, this calls for a celebration.
There's a couple of bottles of champagne in my hamper, though I doubt if they'll be drinkable yet after the shaking they've had in the past 10 hours.
I think we can run to something amusing in the house.
If you'll forgive me, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be turning in now.
Oh, but you can't just...
Oh, come now, Mr. Reese. It isn't every night we have the chance to celebrate on this scale.
If any intervention can be said to have saved the train, then it was God's, not mine. I'll give you good night.
But look here, Reese.
There's a rum chap for you.
Extraordinary. That fellow carries diffidence to the point of obsession.
If he's done everything you suggest, Captain Fairfax, then I don't wonder he's all in now.
Well, yes, but hang it all.
He's gone, Ned, so it's no use protesting.
I think we're all capable of drinking his health, nevertheless.
Do tell us exactly what happened. What did Mr. Reese do?
Well, the train suddenly
we were
stopped.
pottering along.
Oh, I'm sorry, my dear.
Oh, no, Ned, no. I'm sure you'll tell it much better than I can.
Oh, nonsense. You're the raconteurs of the family.
We are on edge.
What? Oh, yes. Well, then, we were about 5 miles south of the railhead at Colco when the landslide began. The driver, Johnny, clapped on the brakes, and there we were. Absolute sitting ducks, just waiting to be crushed to death. Couldn't go backwards because the incline was too steep. Couldn't go forward because the chaps in the cabin were in a blue funk. Nightmare situation.
Nightmare situation. But Mr. Reese ran up the line and made the driver and the fireman move on. He was actually shoveling coals himself for 2 miles until we'd left the landslide well behind.
Well, bully for him.
I tell you, he was black as your hat by the time we reached Colco. Passengers all wanted to give him a vote of thanks. But the chap simply disappeared into the market. Extraordinary form. By the time the first Tongas arrived to take us to Simla, he was back again. Spruced up and tight-lipped as ever.
Tight-lipped as ever. He didn't want to discuss it at all.
He's clearly a very modest man.
All he would say was, that fool of a driver should be in a tin chapel, not a railway cabin.
Railway cabin, it's true. I always thought taciturn was a word you find only in books. Until we met Mr. Reese.
Who's that?
Reese.
Good Lord. Sorry to snap like that. I thought it might be a prowler.
I startled you?
Quite all right. I say, are you warm enough on the veranda?
Yes, perfectly, thank you. Amazing what you can see of the Himalayas from here, even at night.
One of the compensations of living at the back of beyond.
The others asleep?
Retired, at any rate. Sorry you weren't up to the jollifications. The Fairfaxes were singing your praises for hours. Sure they meant well.
Yes, they would.
Off colour, were you?
I'm not a convivial man.
Well, takes all sorts.
What they fail to recognize, that admirable couple, is that what I did for myself in the first instance. When the landslide occurred, I had no wish to be crushed to death because of the boundless incompetence of a Welsh driver.
That's not quite as they see it.
You'll forgive me, perhaps, if I tell you that young Fairfax and his kind are about as capable of judging human motives as I am of climbing Mount Everest. And I'd rather not discuss it, if you please. Would you have a lucifer match about you? My pipe's gone out.
Yes, of course.
Oh, thank you.
First time in northern India, is it?
First time north of Cawnpore.
And what made you choose this place?
I beg your pardon?
What made you choose Chell, rather than Simla or Darjeeling?
I heard it was quieter here. Fewer Englishmen and their mem-psalms. Down at Heel Subaltern was singing your praises in a club in Bombay, matter of fact. I noted the address and wrote to you.
But you're not in the army yourself.
I'm not a military man.
Travel much, do you?
When I can.
India's the only place I know. I was born out here, on the coast of Coromandel. My father and grandfather were with John Company.
You're better off here. I should keep out of Europe. It's decaying fast.
Oh, you're not including England?
I'm referring to the continent. I spent some time there. France, the Palatinate, Prussia. It's unquiet, infected.
Your home's in England?
My home is wherever I happen to be. West Indies, Honduras, Ceylon, Europe. I was educated in France.
But you are English.
What the devil does it matter what I am? At present, I'm a guest at your hotel.
Forgive me. I had no business badgering you when you're obviously tired.
No, forgive me. I had no business behaving like a lout.
It's simply that my daughter and I see so few new faces that we tend, or I tend, to get a little carried away. In the summer, I live to an extent vicariously on the experiences of our guests.
My dear Laker, it's not something I should advise in my particular case, I can assure you.
Yes?
Tell me, how much would a man need to live on in a place like this?
Why, well, that would depend entirely upon the man's inclinations and appetites.
That's a caveat I like.
And a significant one, surely.
As to that, a few ounces of niggerhead a week, acceptable meals, the occasional whiskey, Place of my own? My tastes are humdrum enough. They don't run to the Colonel.
Well, in sterling terms, you could probably have a bungalow built for 70 or 80 pounds. Thereafter, if you're as temperate as you suggest, you could job along very handsomely with sufficient servants on 150 a year. Unless you intended to socialize.
Heaven forbid.
Thinking of settling in these parts?
I'll know when I've had an opportunity of looking around.
You'll live longer here than you would on the plains.
Longevity isn't the prime consideration.
You're a singular man.
I seek, ultimately, isolation. But an isolation of my own choosing.
Ah, bacon, eggs, fried bread and coffee. Really sets a chap up for the day. Seal, you old villain. You're a perfect marvel.
Gotcha.
What's the bally weather going to be like, eh? Cool enough for a picnic?
Perfect for picnicking, sir.
You hear that, ladies? What did I tell you?
But are you fully recovered from your journey?
Never felt better. Good night's sleep, mountain air, fit as a fiddle. You all join us, Mrs. Bellew?
Well, I should love to, of course, but...
Well, we'll get Reese to make up the foursome. Where is he, anyway?
Sir, Reese has been walking since sunrise.
Walking? Fellow's a glutton for punishment. Is he back?
Oh, look! There he is. Down by the deodars. Smoking.
You make that sound very sinister.
What? Sinister? Oh, no. I was surprised to see him smoking a pipe, that's all.
I think it suits him, and I shall go and tell him so. Good morning, Mr. Reese. Up and about early?
Morning, ma'am.
What are you looking at so keenly?
I was watching that pair of elephants. Do you see them there in the forest?
Oh, good heavens, yes. Do you suppose they're wild?
With two young fellows sitting on their necks, I should scarcely imagine so.
Oh, dear. Are they really two mahouts? I'm afraid I can't see as clearly as you can.
But there they are, plain to be seen, not 100 yards off.
I have something of an astigmatism, Mr. Reese.
Then don't you possess a pair of spectacles?
No lady looks her best wearing spectacles.
No lady with an astigmatism can see her best without them.
You're very formidable, aren't you? Very logical. You must learn to make allowances for a woman's vanity. Captain and Mrs. Fairfax are proposing a picnic today. They're hoping you'll join us.
Picnic?
Picnic, yes. Surely to goodness you know what a picnic is, Mr. Reese.
I'm sorry, the notion doesn't appeal to me.
No, but why? It's a beautiful day. A shame to waste it.
Is any alternative to a picnic the waste of a day?
How difficult men are. You know what I mean.
I came to the mountains for peace, Mrs. Bellew, not picnics.
Then you won't come.
Haven't I made myself sufficiently clear?
But there's so much more fun with the force, and do say you'll come.
Strange though it may appear to you, I have no desire to spend my first full day here in the way you suggest.
I say, he's ticking her off. He's reading the jolly old Riot Act.
Riot Act? Oh, dear. Oh, I do believe our gay charmer is retiring in tears.
You're right, you know. Mrs. Bellew!
Leaving the field of battle, handkerchief to her eyes.
Oh, look here, we can't have this sort of thing.
Oh, where are you going? Ned!
Mrs. Bellew in tears, is she?
I've no idea.
She certainly appeared to be.
She won't take no for an answer.
Invited you to the picnic, I suppose.
An invitation I refused.
Must have been pretty short about it, to discompose her like that. Well, she's a chatterbox, of course, but she's good-hearted enough.
She's a stupid and insensitive young woman.
I say, that's coming it a bit strong.
In addition, she is petulant and conceited, and above all, she cannot stop talking.
Oh, yes, but was there any need
I'm going
to...
inside. I have some letters to write.
I see.
What luck, Ned?
What? Extraordinary sort of morning this has turned out to be. People flying off the handle in all directions.
All directions. Well, then, a picnic for 2 or for 3?
3. Mrs. Bellew will soon be herself again. I was pretty sharp with Reese just now. Few home truths, and he soon cleared off.
Now, Ned, We're here for a holiday, and I don't want it spoilt with a lot of silly and unnecessary quarrelling.
Who said anything about quarrelling? I was merely setting the matter to rights.
Well, I hope so. I really do. Mr. Reese is a highly strung gentleman, and a little of your boisterousness will go a long way with him. He's not one of your noisy subalterns, you know.
If he were, we'd be having an altogether jollier time of it, I dare say.
How's it coming along, Alice? Everything under control?
I think so. I shall have to leave with the hampers in half an hour or so.
Have they all gone picnicking?
All but Mr. Reese. He went down into the village for a stroll, but I think he's reading on the lawn now.
Solitary cove, isn't he?
He seems to me to be a very private man.
Yes. Well, I hope he won't find the younger element here too lively for his tastes.
Oh, I shouldn't worry too much on that account. He knew it was a small hotel when he first wrote to us. Can't have expected it to be entirely empty.
Suppose not.
Why do you say that so dolefully?
Oh, I don't know. I believe he'd like to open up a little, but there's something constraining him. I tell you what, why not ask him to drive you to the picnic site with the hampers?
Do you think that's wise?
I think it's worth a try. He's going to be thrown together with the others for at least a month, so he might as well get used to their company. If he doesn't want to stay on there, he can always come back on his own.
Hello?
Ah, Miss Laker. What have you got there?
Fresh lemon juice. It's very hot already.
Very kind. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Good. Very good.
Seal and Chandra have soft drink making to a fine art now.
I should say so. What a view. What a magnificent view you have from here. It's also harmonious.
It's what persuades us to stay on year after year.
I can see that. Look here, why don't you sit down? Join me.
For a short time. Thank you.
That's it. Do you mind if I smoke this thing?
Oh, please do. There's something very nostalgic about the smell of tobacco smoke up here.
Nostalgic? For what?
I don't know, really. England, I suppose. Saxon church, the village green, cricket in the afternoon, and old gentlemen puffing their pipes under the trees.
Have you visited England, then? I gather that your father has never left India.
Neither have I. No, my vision of England is entirely based on light reading and the comments of the guests we have here. It's a composite of other people's memories and my own imagination.
Well, it's not entirely inaccurate. My father was a vicar in Devon, and his living embraced very much the kind of community you were describing.
You're going back, aren't you? Sooner or later?
I don't know. I don't know at all.
Well, have you no family that you miss?
Travellers, habitual exiles, have no business with families they can never visit. It's an extreme form of selfishness.
But what about sailors and the military?
The profession of arms isn't something I can discuss with any degree of impartiality. I'd much sooner talk about Chael and the life here.
Then we can kill two birds with one stone.
How so?
Well, I have to take the hampers up to the picnic. If you care to drive the Tonga for me, I'll tell you everything you want to know about Chael.
Is that an ultimatum?
If you say so, Mr. Reese.
In the garden, you were talking of families. May I ask why you never married?
Why, Mr. Reese, is this an entirely proper conversation for our first journey together?
I can't imagine why I asked you. It must be the altitude. But there it is. I have asked. And I expect nothing but what you would properly wish to say.
It's a longish story, but not, I suppose, an uncommon one in India. I became engaged in 1870 to a lieutenant in the Assam Light Infantry, the 42nd. Richard, like me, was born in India, and soldiering was in his blood. He took part the following year in a punitive expedition against the Lushai. You've probably never heard of them.
I can't say I have. But if this is painful for you, I'd rather you didn't continue.
It all happened such a long time ago, I'm capable of talking about it without embarrassing either of us. The Lushai Hills are in Manipur, close to the Burmese border. The expeditionary force went into the hills following a series of unpleasant outrages. Shortly after Christmas Day, Richard led a small force to recover a number of commissariat elephants that had been captured by the Lushai. No one returned. On New Year's Eve, a column went into the jungle to look for them. They were discovered, mutilated and scalped. Richard was 25. It was his first command.
I'm sorry.
Colonel made some agreeable noises about Richard's gallant and honourable death in the field. I find it difficult to forgive his noble lies. Richard had clearly died slowly and in great pain. Thereafter, I made up my mind to have nothing more to do with the officers of the Raj. They die too young and too frequently, for reasons quite beyond my comprehension.
Do you think they'll be long, Ned? I'm very thirsty.
There's always the beer. Should be quite cold by now. It's been in the stream for a couple of hours.
I don't care for beer, darling, as you very well know. Neither, I'm sure, does Mrs. Bellew.
Alice promised us wine, didn't she?
I believe so. All the way from Pondicherry. Trust the French to look after themselves if we don't.
It really is very hot, even in the shade.
I say, what about that?
Who is it? I can't see as far as that.
Why, it's Alice Baker, driven by Mr. Reese.
Extraordinary. She's somehow succeeded with him where the rest of us have failed.
Laker, where the devil are you?
Hello. What are you doing in jail, Kitson?
Oh, getting away from Simla, principally.
Well, sit down. Drink?
Oh, no, thanks. Had too much at luncheon. Got a splitting headache and I'm feeling liverish.
Physician, heal thyself.
This is something quinine won't cure. I shall have to try abstemiousness.
Oh, but this is very serious.
Where are your guests, anyway? Are they all arrived now?
Oh, yes, and they're picnicking. Alice is with them. They'll be back shortly, I imagine. They want to be home by sundown.
Ah. Oh, pity Alice ain't here. I wanted to have a word with her.
I don't think it's any use.
What?
I don't think it's any use persisting with Alice. She seems to have no interest in marriage whatsoever.
What's the matter with the girl? Damn it all, it's not as if I wanted to carry her off 1,000 miles away. The change would be a moderate one.
That's not the way she appears to see it.
She's discussed me with you?
No, not you. Just marriage, generally.
Oh, I can't make her out. Not at all.
She's had a great many proposals, some facetious, some serious, from all kinds and conditions of men over the past 10 years or so. You're not alone in failing to make her out.
But she isn't getting any younger. Most women of her age have 3 or 4 children. That's what she needs.
How can you be sure what she needs or wants? I certainly can't. And I've known her all her life.
But you can make her see reason. She respects your judgment.
As far as Alice is concerned, reason doesn't enter into the scheme of things. She's looking for love, I've no doubt, but she's also looking for someone to love. And evidently she hasn't found him yet.
But when a woman's over 30, to talk of love is a little disingenuous, surely. Marriage becomes a partnership based on respect, a hope for companionship.
You make it sound like a building contract. Alice doesn't have your Bernosic attitude towards marriage. And after all, why should she?
Is it wrong to be practical? Do you disagree with me?
In principle, no. In practice, yes. You don't love her, but she would be useful to you. She's an excellent housekeeper, an accomplished hostess, and strong men don't, in fact, turn ashen when they see her face. All useful notches on the social totem. But Alice wants a sweetheart, not a tallyman.
Trouble with you, Laker, is I never know whether you're being serious or not.
I'm never certain myself most of the time. But I'm very serious in the matter of Alice's happiness. I believe she's a girl in a million, and I trust her to arrive at her own decision in a matter as important as this.
Time to go. Sun's below the yardarm and it's time to go.
Oh, you're so noisy, Ned. Oh, I was having such a nice doze.
Aha, the shadows are lengthening, and the mosquitoes will be on us in swarms any minute.
Oh, how horrid.
Come on. Plenty more days for plenty more picnics. To horse, Peterkin.
Oh, is he always as revoltingly hearty as this, Mrs. Fairfax?
Always. Except when he's asleep.
I suppose we should get back before nightfall. The track's not too good, even in the best of the day. Would you bring the hampers, Mr. Reese?
Yes, of course.
Tell you what, Reese. I don't mind betting I can get back home in shorter order than you can. How about a bit of a race?
Oh, don't be so childish, Ned.
Oh, yes, do let's have a race.
I'm not at all sure it's a good idea.
Army versus all comers. How about it?
You may be a very good driver, Captain, but these are young ponies. I don't want one breaking a leg.
Ah, you worry too much, little miss. Do the beasts good to extend them a bit. Now, who's coming with me?
I do hope Ned Fairfax isn't going all out all of the way. There are some awkward bends further on.
Like most of his kind, Fairfax is long on bravura, but short on common sense. Your average officer suffers from a complete want of imagination. In action, this can be a positive advantage, but behind the lines, it produces some deplorable effects.
For a civilian, you seem to know the military very well.
I've seen them at first hand. I served with a neutral ambulance unit during the Franco-Prussian War.
Oh, what a hideous experience. What made you do that? Mr. Reese?
I suppose I was anxious to observe human folly on the grand scale. I don't imagine the world will see another Sedan in my lifetime.
I'm sure your motives were more generous than that.
You mustn't judge the rest of the world by your standards. I'd say you were incapable of selfishness. But virtually everything in my life has been shaped by expediency, and nothing nobler than that.
I wonder what your wife would say to that.
My wife? What makes you suppose I have a wife?
Mrs. Bellew, ahead of us.
Oh, there. Looks as if she's taken a tumble.
But alone? What's happened to their tonga?
Perfectly ridiculous. When he's in better shape, I shall give him a good dressing down. Might have broken all their necks.
I did warn him before they set off for home.
He's going to have to pay for a new axle tree.
Oh, can't it be mended?
Possible. There's a split right through it. Have to be replaced. Oh, hello, Reese. How is the young lunatic?
It was a clean break, fortunately. Now his leg's in splints, he'll be all right. But it's going to be painful for a while.
He's lucky to have had someone with medical knowledge to look after him. I'm very grateful for all you've done. Maddening thing is that Kitson left only half an hour before you all arrived back. In the event, I don't think he could have made a better job of Fairfax's leg than you have.
Kitson?
He has a practice in Simla. He comes up to see us quite frequently.
To see you quite frequently.
What sort of age would he be?
Oh, 45, I dare say.
He's 48. Why? Do you know him, Mr. Reese?
No. The man I'm thinking of would be much older than that.
I beg your pardon. Do help yourself to whiskey. Clean forgot to offer you some earlier.
I'd like a drink now, thank you. Is this locally distilled?
Yes, not half bad, is it?
It's excellent.
Do you by any chance play backgammon?
I have done. Why?
I was hoping we might have a game or two. Run through all the available opposition many times over.
Some other time, perhaps. When I finish my drink, I shall take a turn round the village.
You like your exercise?
I like Indian villages at night. It's the only time they're ever tranquil. I shall take Pan.
You take Pan?
Certainly. There's nothing better for the temper or the digestion.
But your teeth aren't stained.
You have to chew areca seeds and cardamom habitually before your teeth will discolor. I seldom take more than one Pan a day. Until you've taken Pan with an Indian, you've neglected one of his most important social offerings. In English terms, it's like going to someone's home for tea and refusing to drink their tea because it's a filthy habit.
Dear me, I didn't realize the social significance of Pan. I've always thought of it as faintly degenerate.
Forgive me, but you probably haven't thought about it at all. Wherever the Raj extends, the British merely follow British precedent. Tact and imagination remain words in a child's primer. I'll give you a good evening.
Unbelievably touchy chap he is. And all that rot about Pan. What does he think he's trying to prove?
He's an awkward man in many ways. Very bitter sometimes. But I think the awkwardness arises from his need to speak his mind at all times, regardless of people or circumstances.
Yet he was civil enough with Fairfax. The family doctor couldn't have been more considerate at 5 guineas a visit.
I'm sure he wants to like people, but he's constantly on his guard against them.
But what does he do, Alice? Has me foxed completely. Doesn't have the manner of someone with private means, and yet he's a gentleman. Very odd. Very odd indeed.
He has the bearing of a soldier and the reactions of a soldier in emergency. Yet he evidently detests the military. He made that very clear this afternoon on our way back from the picnic.
There's something he's keeping dark. I don't know what it is or why. You see, he doesn't make any of the right noises.
What on earth do you mean?
Look here, most men, when they find themselves in strange surroundings, make clearly defined opening gambits. Within 10 minutes, they let it be known where they fit socially, where they come from, what they do, and whom they know. And in turn, they receive similar information from the others. It's all far more stylized than you'd at first imagine, but it serves a very useful social purpose, and we all do it. Not so with friend Reese. He seems determined to obscure everything but the fact of his presence here. Like a fox trying to run with a pack of otter hounds. Very rum. Exceedingly rum.
You know, I think I have rather a clever old father.
It's taken you long enough to acknowledge that.
But there are 2 things about Mr. Reese that he can't conceal, try as he might. He's very lonely, and he's very unhappy.
That guest of yours did a splendid job on Fairfax's leg. I should like to meet him.
Oh, he should be back fairly soon. He's been botanizing in the mountains all day.
I've never known such a man for exercise. He's never still. He was often away at daybreak, long before we could thank him for being so marvellous yesterday.
You say this Reese was in the Franco-Prussian scrap? He must have seen some horrors there.
I don't believe he'd be willing to talk about it. He's a very reticent gentleman.
Oh, well, we must put a stop to that. There's a dozen families in Simla would like to meet him, I'll be bound. Oh, we might even get him an introduction to the Viceroy. He sounds the right sort.
I don't think our Mr. Reese is much of a socializer, Dr. Kitson.
You make him sound a thoroughly morose beggar. What does he do?
Oh, we're all dying to find out. He's very mysterious.
Reese, his name is. Is he Welsh?
I believe he comes from Devon. His father was a vicar there.
How in the world did you discover that?
In conversation. How else?
Oh, look, would that be him now? Oh, you know what my vision is like.
But he's leading the pony. And in this heat.
Oh, I expect Tommy cast a shoe.
Chandra, go and take Tommy from Reese Bahadur.
Reese Bahadur, indeed. Very honorific, aren't we?
Hello, Mr. Reese. Have you had problems with the pony?
I think he's pulled a muscle. He's been limping it for a while.
Oh, come inside and have a drink. You must be exhausted.
I'll wash and change first, thank you.
Oh, do come and meet Dr. Kitson. He's full of praise for your medical skill.
Kitson?
How do you do, my dear fellow? And congratulations.
Dr. Kitson, Mr. Reese.
How do you do, sir?
If my assistants could handle broken limbs just half as well as you do, I'd be a much happier man.
Good of you to say so.
Look here. Have we met somewhere before, you and I?
I think not.
Oddly enough, Mr. Reese does know a Dr. Kitson, but obviously not you, George.
Extraordinary coincidence. Where'd you meet him?
Honduras. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll clean up a little.
Oh, but you're coming back. We must have a drink together.
Not before dinner. I have some correspondence to attend to.
Oh, I say. Reese.
Yes?
Were you ever in South Africa?
No.
You see? You see what we mean? Mr. Reese is not a man for idle conversation.
Not a man for any sort of conversation, seemingly. But I'm certain I've seen him before. Peter Maritzburg, perhaps. Or Robinson's Drift. In Natal, certainly.
But you can't have done. He's just told us he's never been in South Africa.
Alice, I never forget a face. Names, yes, in and out like water through a colander. But faces, no.
Anyway, it's quite unimportant, and I suggest we all stop guessing.
I'll remember sooner or later. In any event, I'd like to have a word with you, if you'll excuse us, Mrs. Bellew.
Oh, yes.
Take a turn round the garden with me, Alice.
If you wish. Forgive us, Mrs. Bellew?
Oh, why, of course. I'll call in on Mrs. Fairfax. I dare say she'd like some company now.
What a good idea. Come along, my dear. I waited for you yesterday as long as I could, but I had to leave before you returned. An appointment in Simla.
Oh, yes.
I've been beating about the bush for weeks now, trying to pluck up the old courage, what? Anyway, here we are, and... Alice.
Yes, George, I'm all attention.
Oh, dash it all, you're just like your father. Always have the feeling you aren't taking a chap seriously.
I'll try, I promise.
You know, we get along pretty well together, you and I. And we're not adolescents any longer. We know how the world wags. And, well, I've been weighing up the situation for quite some time now, and,
You've decided to make a proposal of marriage.
Right. What?
I didn't mean to steal your thunder, George, but if I hadn't said it for you, I believe we should have been walking round and round the garden until we were both quite giddy.
Oh, yes. Well, it's a relief to have it off my mind, of course, and I shan't deny it.
May we sit down now?
Oh, of course. There you are. Taken you by surprise, have I? Hope you're not offended.
I don't think any woman could be offended by an honourable proposal of marriage. George, if I appear to be searching for words, it's because that's exactly what I am doing.
Are yes and no so frightfully difficult to find?
Let me ask you something.
Oh, well, of course, my dear. Ask away.
Are you in love with me? Clearly you aren't. Do you love me? And that's rather a different question.
I'm devoted to you. You must know that, surely.
My pony's also devoted to me. So is Seal. In his unguarded moments, even my father might express some such sentiment.
Oh, you're too clever by half, Alice. I'm a straightforward sort of chap, and I want you to marry me. I hope, I believe that you're fond of me. I'm sure we should be happy.
I'm happy now, living as I am.
Look, I'm sorry I didn't dress the whole thing up a little more romantically. A woman's a right to expect something more memorable than a middle-aged doctor's bumblings. But there it is. I am middle-aged, and forgive me, Alice, but you're no longer a girl with her hair just up. At our time of life, we have to face these facts.
Then let us by all means face them. You're a man with a man's natural needs and inclinations. Were I to become your wife, you would expect the marriage to be consummated, would you not?
Good God.
These are the facts, my dear. You asked us to face them. For my part, I could not submit to the embrace unless I loved my husband and he loved me. There, now it's time to go inside. I must talk to Seal about dinner.
Alice, there's someone else. Is it Reese?
There's no one. No one at all.
is letting himself go tonight, isn't it?
I can see we shall have to keep him permanently drunk.
Well done, Reese. Another drink?
You know, I think I shall. Thank you.
And you, Dr. Kitson, it's your turn now to entertain us, I think.
Oh, yes, come along, George. We've all done our best, so what about a song from you?
Oh, you must be mad. I'm completely tone deaf.
Oh, shame. You shan't wriggle out of it as easily as that.
My dear, I swear that if I attempted to sing, the entire room would clear on the instant.
But you must have something up your sleeve. Spot of conjuring, perhaps.
Conjuring, perhaps, or a recitation.
Yes, a monologue. Altogether your style, I should have thought, George.
Oh, a lot of persistent beggars, aren't you?
Yes.
Oh, very well. I shall have to dredge through my memories a moment.
Then we shall sit down and watch you dredge.
What about, you know we French stormed Ratisbon?
An Austrian army awfully arrayed.
Prosperous farewell to the Magic Isle.
I'll give a chap a bit of hush. All right, I've got it.
Oh, lovely.
I hope I can remember the blessed thing.
Oh, we shall help George should you stumble by the wayside.
All right, here we go.
Steady the buffs.
The Patriot by Robert Browning.
Capital.
Yes, The Patriot by Robert Browning. It was roses, roses all the way, and myrtle mixed in me path like mad. The house roofs seemed to heave and sway.
Excuse me.
I see. Evidently not to Reese's taste.
Nonsense, he's had a bit too much to drink.
I hope he's all right.
It wasn't the drink that upset him. It was the poem, and I know why.
Don't be absurd, George. He wanted some fresh air, that's all.
No, I knew I'd seen that face somewhere before. Though when I saw him last, he wasn't sporting moustaches. By God. Small wonder he couldn't stomach the Patriot. That fellow was once a British officer, and he was court-martialed for cowardice in South Africa.
Mr. Reese? Mr. Reese, where are you? Mr. Reese!
I'm here.
Are you all right?
Perfectly. Wanted some fresh air, that's all.
Dr. Kitson's recitation wasn't upsetting you.
Why the devil should it? I beg your pardon. I have something of a headache.
I was worried.
You shouldn't be.
May I ask you something? I have no right to expect an answer, but I must ask you anyway.
What on earth do you mean?
Have you ever seen Dr. Kitson? That Dr. Kitson, before today?
Never. Why?
Have you ever been to South Africa?
Of course I haven't. Why do you wish to know?
It's quite unimportant, and I promise you I shall never trouble you again.
Alice?
Yes?
You've been extraordinarily kind to me since I came to jail. I'd like you to know that I appreciate it very deeply. More than I can adequately explain.
It's not entirely disinterested.
I beg your pardon?
You're one of the few men I've met since Richard died whom I should like to know a great deal better.
I wish I could...
Will you excuse me? I must get back to the others.
Alice?
I don't care what the fellow may or may not have done. I won't have scandal of this sort about a guest under my roof.
Dash it all, Kitson, you must be mistaken. The man's got nerves of iron. If you'd seen the way he dealt with that train near Culca...
Near Culca? If it hadn't been for Mr. Reese, we should both be dead now.
Absolutely. No, Kitson, you're barking up quite the wrong tree. Reese may be an odd sort of chap. Deep sort of fellow, I'd say. But when it comes to the push, he's utterly reliable. First rate.
George, you're mistaken. Mr. Reese had no idea what you alleged just now. And if you wish to visit this house ever again, I must insist that you promise never to repeat that abominable canard.
I see. You prefer the silence of a stranger to the testament of an old friend.
Don't be so melodramatic. Anyone can make a mistake, and that's what you've done. But it would be very hurtful if Mr. Reese should hear about it. Now, will you do as I ask?
Oh, it's high time I left. Party's got out of hand.
You began it, you know. We were all enjoying ourselves until you made that extremely unpleasant remark.
Remark? I'm going to bed. Are you coming, Ned?
Oh, rather. If you'll give me a hand up.
Here you are.
There. Well, I hope we've heard the last of all this. Oh, look here, Kitson. None of us is saying you're a liar. All we're saying is that you must be mistaken. Now, why don't you leave it like that? There's a good fellow.
Good night.
But that's beautiful. Absolutely charming.
I should like you and Alice to have it.
Oh, my dear fellow, we couldn't possibly accept it.
But I insist. It would be ungracious of you to refuse a gift.
Yes, but this samovar's a perfect beauty. No, I'm terribly grateful, Reese,
You've made me very comfortable here this past fortnight. You've shown me every courtesy and consideration. I don't know when I've enjoyed myself more. So please, take it and have done.
It's extremely generous of you, and we shall treasure it.
And use it, I hope.
Alice will go over her head when she sees it. In fact, why don't you wrap it up again and give it to her yourself? You deserve to see the delight it'll give her.
Oh, that sort of thing isn't much in my line. You show it to her when she returns.
Where are you off to? What about a drink?
I'll join you later, and thank you.
Thank you, my dear chap.
What the devil's that caterwauling?
Oh, the inexhaustible young Harding about his muscular Christianity again.
With tribal children?
You have no idea. He bribes them with lollipops and illustrated tracts from Genesis.
But what do their parents make of
He
it?
bribes them too. Anna's 10 for every child who attends Sunday school. The number of converts he's made is astonishing.
Sound like that would cheer old Reese's heart.
Why Reese in particular? He always strikes me as possessing a particularly cynical mind.
Oh, don't you believe it. He spends the hour before dinner, every evening, with his Bible.
The devil, you say?
Promise you.
I suppose it's hardly surprising. His father's a vicar, after all. Religion clearly runs in the family.
I don't know. Massive contradictions, that chap. Do you know where he was this afternoon?
In Simla Market, buying us that magnificent samovar.
Correct, sir. But did he tell you exactly where he bought it?
Does it matter? It's a beautiful object.
Letty, Alice, and Mrs. Bellew saw him vanish into the establishment of none other than A.N. Jacob.
What?
A.N. Jacob. Positively no mistake about it.
Heaven's sake, Kitson, don't look so wronged. It's his first visit to the hills. He can't have any idea of the kind of reputation Jacob has.
Well, whatever else may be said about Reese, he's nobody's fool. If he went to see Jacob, he went there for a purpose.
Exactly. To buy this samovar.
Just tell me candidly, after all your years in this district, what the common knowledge is about Jacob.
Common knowledge here, perhaps, to the military and the ICS, but not to chance travellers.
Oh, no one finds his place by chance.
Yes, and I'm stationed in Madras, Laker, 1,200 miles south of here. And even I know of Jacob's reputation. The man deals in espionage.
Come in.
Oh, dear. I hope I'm not disturbing you.
What can I do for you, Mrs. Bellew?
The clasp on one of my trunks is jammed. I was wondering if you could release it for me.
If I...
Oh, I would ask one of the chowkidars, but you know how careless they are with things.
I see. Well, I'll take a look at it, but I can't promise anything.
Thank you. I'm sure you'll manage beautifully. Do come through. There, you see? I simply can't move it.
How did that happen? Was it dropped?
Oh, you know what these people are like. How careless they are.
Which people?
The Indians, Mr. Reese. The Indians.
Consider, Mrs. Bellew, what the Indians are paid to be careful about. What they earn in a week wouldn't keep me in drinks for 2 hours. Now... There. There you are.
But you've been so quick. How can I thank you?
Say thank you, perhaps. Now, if you'll excuse me.
While you're here, could I trespass on your kindness for 2 more minutes?
What is it? I am rather busy at present.
It's your advice I should appreciate. Manly advice.
Oh, yes?
In the matter of what I'm to wear to dinner this evening.
Well, you'd do far better consulting Alice Laker or Mrs. Fairfax.
There. What do you think of this one?
Seems very pretty. Difficult to tell, really.
Then I shall change into it and you can see it properly.
Then I shall wait outside.
Oh, nonsense. There's a screen here.
This is absolutely preposterous.
I do appreciate your patience, you know. I'm afraid I'm one of those ladies who does rely on masculine judgment. There. What do you think?
Good heavens.
Oh, dear. Don't you like it?
It's rather unexpected.
The décolletage, you mean? Oh, it's all the go, I assure you, in London and Paris.
Very possibly. But we are in the Himalayas, Mrs. Bellew. Won't you be chilly?
If I am, I can wear a stole. Well, does it meet with your approval?
I'm not used to anything quite so revealing.
But it pleases you.
Should it be your object to please other men when your husband isn't here?
Oh, would you have me dress dowdily because I'm on my own? You do like it, don't you? You find it attractive?
Provocative would be a more accurate description.
Oh, but that's good. You couldn't have paid me a higher compliment.
This kind of situation could get out of hand.
Oh, does a little flirtation matter?
Certainly, when you have a husband in Calcutta.
And I know what he'll be doing, where he'll be going at this time of evening. You must know far better than I do that men separated from their wives have means of assuaging their loneliness.
This isn't a proper conversation for us to be holding.
Why are you so alarmed?
Disconcerted, perhaps, that you should choose to be so frank. But you're no stranger to this sort of conversation, are you?
The only sin, Mr. Reese, is to be caught.
This is harlot's talk.
Perhaps. But you're fascinated.
I don't believe the lowest drab who ever followed the drum would betray her lover as lightly as you're offering to betray your husband.
How dare you?
Adultery is a crime against God and man. If you possess so little continence, then I advise you to return to Calcutta immediately.
You are contemptible!
Never heard such an unlikely story, Letty. But Reese, I gather you had something of an adventure as well in Simla today.
Adventure? Shopping in the mall.
Didn't you visit the mysterious Mr. Jacob?
That's what he was called. Antiquarian chap.
In a benevolent mood, I suppose you might call him that. There are other less harmonious reports about A.N. Jacob.
Oh.
Because he's a half-caste, or looks like one?
His parentage has nothing to do with it. He's widely regarded as being a spy, for the largest bidder, to be sure, but notably for Russia.
And in certain parts of Germany, William Shakespeare is widely regarded as being of Teutonic origin. What does that prove?
I'm afraid one can't be too facetious about old Jacob. Fellow has an appalling reputation.
With whom?
Oh, generally.
Oh, come now. What does that really mean? Anyone who trades between Simla and Tashkent can barter news as well as goods. It's been going on for thousands of years.
Know Simla well, do you? On intimate terms with the officers of military intelligence?
Have you personal knowledge of this Jacob?
Damn it, of course I haven't.
And would you pronounce a medical opinion upon a patient you'd never examined? Well, then, why this fuss about another trader?
For the samovar you bought from him, I could forgive him anything.
Here.
I should imagine that Mr. Reese and Mr. Jacob have a great deal in common, wouldn't you? Both being gentlemen of mystery.
You look for mystery when none exists, Mrs. Bellew.
Oh, I think not.
I hope you aren't intending to embark upon something you will surely regret.
Come, this is a dinner party and the conversation's been serious quite long enough. Mrs. Fairfax, what gossip did you pick up in Simla today?
Oh, but I believe I have some excellent gossip. For the table in general.
Splendid. Tell us.
How would you define the conduct of a gentleman who attempts, by every means at his disposal, to seduce a married woman whose husband is in no position to come to her assistance?
Aha! There's some scandal you heard today.
Before we answer, Mrs. Bellew, let me counter with a question for you.
Oh, shame.
How would our friends define the conduct of a married woman who sets out to seduce a near stranger at the first opportunity that presents itself?
I say, what kind of game are you two playing?
Playing? Do Don't keep us in suspense.
What the devil's going on?
You may well ask.
Laker, I advise you to control Mrs. Bellew before she finds herself in litigation.
And whose word will they believe?
Either be quiet or speak up openly.
Look here, old man, that's no way to address an officer's wife.
Mrs. Bellew is a bored and irresponsible young woman with the instincts of a courtesan.
Oh, good heavens. You'll apologize. How dare you talk like that? By God, Fairfax, I was right about him, and I knew it.
Miss Laker, can you persuade that silly girl to behave herself in adult company?
What's all this about? 2 hours ago, Mr. Reese came to my room and made indecent proposals to me.
You hear it? Laker? Fairfax, all of you? Would a woman with a legitimate and damaging accusation wait 2 hours to bring it? Would she giggle her way through dinner opposite her supposed seducer without a word of complaint? I demand an instant retraction, Mrs. Bellew, or tomorrow you'll be faced with a solicitor's letter, and these unlucky people will be obliged to testify against you.
The most sensible course is for all of us to forget this recent conversation and never refer to it again. Otherwise, Mrs. Bellew, I shall have to ask you to leave this hotel.
What did you say? I leave the hotel.
You take his word against this lady.
I shall discuss it no further, and anyone wishing to do so may leave the hotel at once.
Mr. Laker, you disappoint me.
And you disappoint me. You distress me greatly.
Thank you, Laker.
Just a minute. Do you realize who you're protecting?
Don't be foolish, George.
No, I'll not stand by and see an honest woman's reputation sullied by a renegade.
Have you all gone mad?
Let me ask him this. Is Alan Reese the name you were born with?
What is my name to you?
Aren't you known in the Bombay residency as Jaleel Brenton Carey?
What? Now, don't be absurd, Kitson.
Yet our friend keeps his own counsel.
Kitson, I want you to leave. And I don't want to see you here again.
Damn it, Reese. Tell him it's not true.
Seal, escort Dr. Kitson to his carriage.
Not before we've thrashed this out.
Am I to use force?
Let him deny it first.
Why don't you clear off?
Would someone please tell me what this awfulness is about?
Mrs. Fairfax, Mrs. Bellew, you both come with me.
Oh, let them stay. It doesn't matter.
Do you realize what he's calling you?
He claims I'm a serving officer with the British Army in India. Well, so are you, Fairfax. And so is the husband of that frivolous young woman.
Stop it, all of you!
You've been a just man this evening, Laker. I won't reward you with lies. Suppose my name is Carey. What then?
What then? What then? Cashiered for cowardice in the field. The man who almost caused a war between England and France. And you ask what then? You aren't wanted here. You aren't wanted anywhere on the face of the earth. Get out before you tempt me to injure you.
Seal, show Dr. Kitson out.
Let me finish the story. Publicly acquitted, a Queen's pardon, gazetted captain, and a serving officer since that time.
If you're so proud of being Carey, why masquerade as Reese?
To avoid scenes like this, with oafs like you. If you want the facts, go to the Adjutant General in England.
I was there. I knew I'd seen you in South Africa. I was at Landman's Drift when they brought his body back.
No one denies he died, least of all myself. But his death was a misadventure, and the world accepted it as such.
Not the British Army. If you were innocent, why hasn't one of your brother officers spoken a word to you for 6 years?
Lieutenant Carey, sir.
Yes, Trooper, what is it?
Colonel Harrison presents his compliments, sir. And would you report to him as soon as possible?
Ah, Carey, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
We have a problem.
Sir?
In the person of the Prince Imperial.
Louis Napoleon?
The young beggar's in South Africa.
Well, what's he doing here? It's preposterous.
That's what we've all been saying from Lord Chelmsford downwards. I gather the Prince was bored with Woolwich, and when he heard we were on the move in Natal, he decided to come to the sharp end. The French are appalled, but the Prince wooed Queen Victoria, who spoke to Mr. Disraeli, who had a word with the Duke of Cambridge, who apologized to Chelmsford and said, that was that. And out the boy came. He's in Pretoria at the moment, but he's anxious to accompany the punitive expedition into Zululand.
As a serving officer?
Oh, absolutely not. As an observer only. The French are being sufficiently touchy about his presence with the field force as it is. However, Lord Chelmsford has seen fit to send the young man to us for a while on the express condition that he's not allowed anywhere near an area of hazard. So, someone's going to have to hold his little French hand.
Someone?
Commandant Bettington, in fact, and yourself. Well, you speak the lingo, Carey, after all.
Very good, sir.
It's far from good. The Prince couldn't have arrived at a more inconvenient time. Clearly, the Prince will have to come with us, but we must ensure he's kept out of harm's way, however much he yearns for glory. Damn it, he's the last of his line. If anything should happen to him, the Napoleonic dynasty is finished. And there's still sufficient of a royalist faction in France to create the most appalling havoc should he die whilst he's on a British campaign. Nevertheless, it's evidently Her Majesty's personal wish that the boy should be here, so we shall have to make the best of an impossible situation.
I understand that the flying column is to make camp by the Idijosi, Colonel Harrison.
In 2 days' time, Your Highness, yes.
Then may I have your permission to accompany the scouting patrol tomorrow?
Carey, you've covered most of that terrain already. What do you think?
Well, the ridge between the Tom McGella and the Idijosi has been reported clear of Zulus, sir. In any event, the Prince would certainly be within sight of the 2nd Division and the flying column lagers. And there'll be at least half a dozen vedettes crossing the entire area during the course of the day. If you like, I can accompany His Highness.
Now look, Prince Louis, if you go off junketing tomorrow with this officer, you must take a proper escort. A proper escort, understood?
Of course, sir. Commandant Beddington's troopers?
Half a dozen, yes. The same number from the Edendale contingent. They're locals. They can winkle out your Zulu at half a mile.
Very good, sir.
You're off, then?
Yes, sir.
But there's only 6 troopers and a guide here. Where are the Edendale men?
Oh, only a few miles in the rear, Colonel. They should overtake us before noon.
See that they do. Taking your dog with you?
Yes, he likes the exercise.
Dog on patrol. Well, off you go, then. And, Highness.
Sir?
Look after yourself. And don't get shot.
Oh, Carey will take very good care that nothing happens to me. Halt!
What is it, sir?
Down there. That car looks deserted. It might make a suitable site for the flying column encampment tomorrow. I think we should investigate it.
If we leave the ridge and go down there, we shall be out of sight of Wood's vedettes.
But there is no danger. You can see for yourself, Carey. There is no sign of life whatsoever.
Apart from the dogs, perhaps. But once we're down there, we shall have restricted visibility. I mean, look at that tambouti grass. It surrounds the kraal on 3 sides. Now, I don't think this is the spot for us. But a very small party, and we should offer a tempting target.
For whom? My dear Carey, for whom? We have not seen a single Zulu all morning. No, they'll be lagering well beyond the Idijosi. Anyway, I want some coffee. We can soon have a fire going in that cattle pen.
Corporal Grubb,
Stop.
off-saddle the horses and knee-halter them. Letok, you and Abel might get a fire going. Use some of that thatch. The place is obviously abandoned.
Very good, sir.
Rogers and Willis can fetch some water from the river. Enough for the horses, if you please.
Understood, sir.
Hello? What's this?
Sugar cane, sir. Yes. It's been chewed fairly recently.
See if the guide can tell us how recently.
Oh, you're being overcautious. We had the place in sight the entire 3 hours it took us to come down from the ridge. And we've seen no activity whatsoever.
Look at these ashes, sir. The guide says the fire must have been lit about dawn today.
All right, Corporal. I'm not happy about this sight, Your Highness. I think we should move off at once.
We have only just arrived. And it's a convenient place to finish the sketches.
If you insist. But I'm not at all happy.
Well, then, I insist.
Lieutenant Carey, sir.
What is it?
The guide says he spotted the Zulu on that rise yonder, sir.
Just the one?
So he says, sir.
There could be more behind. Saddle up at once.
Sir. All right, lads. Saddle up. Come on, quick if you like.
You suppose we're in for a little excitement, Carey?
I hope not. We're much too lightly armed. Cochrane, tighten that girth.
Sir.
And all of you, check your carbines.
All saddled and ready, sir. Carbines loaded.
Good. Prepare to mount.
Hey, what was that?
Mount and ride! Waste no time, lads.
Bear to the left, across the ravine.
Dépêchez-vous, s'il vous plaît! Votre Altesse!
Where's the Prince Imperial, for God's sake?
Here's his horse, sir. Here's Percy. The Prince came off about 100 yards back, sir.
Came off? He's the best horseman in the army.
He was never in the saddle, sir. Percy bolted before the Prince could mount, and he was left hanging by the holster, sir. The strap must have snapped and he fell underneath.
Fell?
Underneath, sir. And I think Percy trampled his arm. My own horse was all out and I didn't see any more.
Abel's hit in the back, sir, and came off here to crawl.
What about Rogers and the guide?
Well, the Zulus got Rogers, sir, before he could mount.
And the guide just disappeared. Don't know where he went.
We can't see the crowd from here. What are our weapons?
I lost my carbine, sir, in the dash.
Willis, Lecoq, Cochrane, you have yours?
Oh, yes, sir.
And I have my revolver and the sword. This is madness. How many would we say were in the ambush party?
About 40, sir.
50, sir, I'd say.
I'd have guessed over 40. And most of them have muskets and assegais.
Yes, sir.
If we mount a search now, we're outgunned very heavily. I'm afraid, I'm desperately afraid, that we must assume our companions are dead.
The court is of opinion that Lieutenant Carey did not understand the position in which he stood to the Prince, and, in consequence, failed to estimate the responsibility which fell to his lot. Secondly, the court is of opinion that Lieutenant Carey is much to blame in having proceeded on duty with only part of the escort. Thirdly, the court is of opinion that the selection of the kraal where the halt was made, surrounded as it was by cover for the enemy, showed a lamentable want of military prudence. Fourthly, the court deeply regrets that no effort was made to rally the escort and show a front to the enemy, whereby the possibility of aiding those who had failed to make good their retreat might have been ascertained. Lieutenant Jalil Brenton Carey, this court-martial finds you guilty of misbehavior in the face of the enemy.
I was there. I was at Landman's Drift when they brought Prince Louis's body back. 17 assegai wounds, Carey. And you escaped scot-free.
I led them to his body the following day. Do you imagine I shall forget it as long as I live? But if I had returned immediately, with 5 men only, we should all have been slaughtered. And to what purpose? I had a duty to the living greater than my duty to the dead.
Chelmsford thought otherwise. Chelmsford cashiered you and sent you back to England.
Lord Chelmsford also stated at the court-martial that I was not deficient in personal bravery. He had no wish to make me the scapegoat for a national catastrophe, which is what the court-martial had attempted. And I was exonerated by the British public and the British press. The Adjutant General himself ruled that the charge against me was not sustained by the evidence. Her Majesty did not confirm its proceedings, and I was relieved of all consequences of the trial. My captaincy was ratified, and I returned to my regiment.
Which has disowned you from that day to this. Good God, you've been ostracized for 6 years. Oh, the army knows how to deal with its own.
You call that hideous silence just and honorable? 6 years of hatred and contempt?
You recognize that you're morally culpable, or you'd never have come here under an assumed name. Is that the action of an innocent man?
I crave normality. A few weeks passed in a society where I could be allowed to forget Louis Napoleon and the 6 years of hate that have followed his death. Here, at last, I was treated as a human being, and not some outrageous spectacle. Congratulations, Kitson, on restoring the natural balance. My dear Alice, my dear Laker, this has been a sorry way to have your kindness repaid. However, once accused by Kitson, I had no option but to see the whole wretched story through. Thank you for not taking Mrs. Bellew's allegations seriously. She is a foolish young woman, and I hope that this affair will have brought her to her senses, for a season or two at least. Clearly, I can no longer remain under your roof. I have enclosed sufficient money to pay for my full stay here, so that should you be unable to fill my unexpected vacancy, you shall not be the losers. Thank you again, and may God bless you both. Yours sincerely, Jaleel Brenton Carey, Captain.
This is insufferable. He can't be driven away like this.
Kitson has a lot to answer for. But how do you hope to find Carey? He could be anywhere.
We have the address of that club in Bombay from where he made his reservation. I shall inquire there first.
It's 1,000 miles away, Alice. It could take weeks.
In a continent of 300 million people, we're his only friends. Who knows what he might have decided if George's viciousness hadn't driven him to desperation.
Be very careful, darling, and think before you act. Are you in love with him, or with his predicament?
I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that after 6 years of cruelty and neglect, he began to trust us. Aloof and difficult though he was, he made overtures of friendship, of affection even. Because you showed him a normal civility, and I betrayed some kind of tenderness. How can I know what might have happened if this horror hadn't been revived by George Kitson? But unless I see him again and talk to him without all these barbaric reservations that our society insists on imposing, I shall never know whether I love him or pity him or need him.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but you must be mistaken. Captain Carey is not a member of this club, nor of any other club in Bombay, to the best of my knowledge.
But you must know where his lines are, in which cantonment he's to be found. This is the officers' club, surely.
We know nothing of Captain Carey here.
You wish to know nothing.
Thousands of officers pass through here every year. Can I be expected to recollect details of every one, ma'am?
But you know of Captain Carey.
You'd better inquire of the military attaché at the residency.
You've come the deuce of a way, Miss Laker. May I offer you some refreshment?
All I require, sir, is the address of Captain Carey.
Carey? Yes. Do you see, Carey don't live within the cantonment. He's a hiring of sorts, some kind of place on Malabar Hill, among the Parsees, I shouldn't wonder.
Can you be more specific than that?
Would you think me frightfully odd if I asked what the nature of your interest in Captain Carey might be?
I'm a friend of his, and I wish to visit him.
A friend? The deuce, you say?
Please, kindly, Ma'am Saab, do not enter the house.
I've come 1,000 miles with the express intention of seeing Captain Carey, and I shan't be put off now. So will you please announce me to your master?
Carey Bahadur is very ill, Ma'am Saab. I think it is the cholera.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I no longer greatly care.
How can this be? You were one of the fittest men I've ever known, and look at you now.
I can't. entirely recall by what means I returned to Bombay. There were dark bungalows and travelers' tents, a camel caravan, and many, many villages. Alice, I've eaten local food and I've drunk local water. Now it's having its effect.
You're dying because you want to die, not because you have to.
There's an end to running.
Because you believed there was nothing else to live for. But there is. I can get you well. We can go to the hills. Assam, I have a little money.
How could I live with you? I have a wife and 2 children.
Then where is your wife now?
How could I expect her to endure 6 years of daily ignominy?
Then effectively she is no longer your wife.
We have not been put asunder.
You are innocent. And at this moment you're also critically ill in an alien country. Why is your wife not here at your side? But I am here. Oh, I don't care what you've been. I know what you are and might become. First, get well. Then resign your commission as you would wish to, honorably, in your own time. Then perhaps we can begin to plan the kind of life that you owe yourself.
Mem Sahab! Mem Sahab! Mem Sahab, quickly!
Puran, what is it?
Oh, Mem Sahab, quickly. Kari Bahadur is very ill.
I'm coming. Puran, stop wringing your hands and listen to me.
Haji.
Now, go to the Wellington lines and fetch Surgeon Major Nichols. Huh? Major Nichols. You understand? Dr. Saab Nichols. Tell him it's urgent.
Man has cholera. He should be in isolation.
He's been in isolation for 6 years, Major. You should know that better than I.
Why did you choose this filthy place in which to live? Swarming with bugs and cockroaches.
Because there was nowhere for him amongst his own kind. Now, will you please attend to him? He's a serving officer and has a right to your help.
Nothing I can do, ma'am. He's dehydrated beyond belief. The kidneys are damaged irreparably.
You're closing the account just like that.
What's that?
Will you wait a moment outside? I want to speak to Captain Carey.
Look, it's useless and dangerous. The man's dying and he's babbling. It makes no sense at all.
Please wait outside. It's Alice, my dear.
Poor boy. I liked him very much. So good-natured. What a horseman. To see him riding the plains at dawn. Oh, yes. Yes. We made plans. Corporal Grubb. Why did the holster strap break?
Please talk to me, Carey.
I am not deficient in personal bravery. There, darling Pelham. There, little Edie. Yes, those were his words. I am not deficient.
Oh, dear God. Your master is dead, Puran-law.
Go on, Hetty. I warned you it wouldn't be long. Well, ma'am, the orderlies will be here sometime after 9 to collect the body. This place will have to be disinfected.
Where will the captain be buried?
No idea. It's up to the commanding officer.
It means nothing to you, does it?
Now, look here, ma'am. I've heard a little bit about you. And think I don't sympathize with you. Come all this way, live in this squalor. To what purpose? A fine young woman reduced to this expediency? And for what?
Is that your obituary? For an officer who gave 20 years of his life to the Empire?
Forgive me, ma'am, but it's no use mincing words. The world knows what Carey was. An embarrassment and a disgrace to his profession and his country. He should have taken the manly way out 6 years ago.
I shall remember you and what you have said. And I hope that when you die, one of your fellow countrymen will not be there to say the same of you.
You've been listening to The Hideous Silence by Michael Robson, with Roger Service as Alan Reese, Pamela Perry as Alice Laker, and Tim Sutcliffe as Gus Laker. Tony Wood played Dr. Kitson, Margaret Milner-Smythe, Flora Bellew, Terrick Fitzhugh, Captain Fairfax, and Gillian Lomberg, Letty Fairfax. Others in the cast were Frank Graham, Peter Batchelor, Tommy Reed, John Kingley, Philip Armitage, Brian Charteris, and Jim Williams. Dramatic control was by Phyllis Stander, and special effects by Yanni Sillier. The Hideous Silence was produced in our Durban studios for the Summer Radio Play Festival by Don Ridgway.
The Summer Radio Play Festival.
The English service presents the Browning version by Terence Rattigan.
Yes?
What about a round of golf before supper?
Oh, I can't. Got to do extra work.
On the last day of term, my Taplow, you must be nuts.
I'm not nuts. It's old Crocker Harris and this blessed Agamemnon he's so keen on.
Oh, that. Okay. See you at supper.
Bye. Nobody here. Sir? I say, sir. What a blighter the old crock is. Fancy setting a chap extra work and then not being here. What's this on his desk? Chalks. Oh, jolly decent, this. Wonder if I dare have another. Oh, no, someone coming up the path. It isn't him, though. It's Hunter. I wonder what he wants. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Do I know you?
No, sir.
What's the name?
Taplow.
Taplow? No, you don't. You're not a scientist, I gather?
No, sir. I'm still in the lower fifth. I can't specialise until next term. That's to say, if I've got my remove all right.
Don't you know yet if you've got your remove?
No, sir. Mr. Crocker Harris doesn't tell us the results like the other masters.
Why not?
Well, you know what he's like, sir.
I believe there is a rule that form results should only be announced by the headmaster on the last day of term.
Yes, but who else pays any attention to it except Mr. Crocker Harris?
I don't, I admit. But that's no criterion. So, you've got to wait until tomorrow to know your fate, have you?
Yes, sir.
Supposing the answer is favourable, what then?
Oh, science, sir, of course.
Yes, we get all the slackers.
I'm extremely interested in science, sir.
Are you? I'm not. Not at least in the science I have to teach.
But anyway, sir, it's a good deal more exciting than this muck.
What is this muck?
The Aeschylus, sir. The Agamemnon.
And your considered view is that the Agamemnon of Aeschylus is muck, is it?
No, sir. I don't think the play is muck, exactly. I suppose in a way it's rather a good plot, really. Wife murdering her husband and having a lover and all that. I only meant the way it's taught to us. Just a lot of Greek words strung together in 50 lines if you get them wrong.
You sound a little bitter, Taplow.
I am, rather, sir.
Kept in, eh?
No, sir. Extra work.
Extra work? On the last day of school?
Yes, sir. And I might be playing golf. Anyway, you'd think he'd had enough to do himself, considering he's leaving tomorrow for good. But oh no. I missed a day last week when I had flu, so here I am. And look at the weather, sir.
Bad luck. Still, there's one consolation. You're pretty well bound to get your remove tomorrow for being a good boy and taking extra work.
Well, I'm not so sure, sir. That would be true of the ordinary masters, all right. You just wouldn't dare not give a chap a remove after his taking extra work. It'd be such a bad advertisement for them. But those sort of rules don't apply to the Croc, Mr. Crocker Harris. I asked him yesterday outright if he'd given me a remove, and do you know what he said, sir?
No, what?
My dear Taplow, I've given you exactly what you deserve. No less, and certainly no more. Do you know, sir, I think he may have marked me down rather than up for taking extra work. I mean, the man's barely human. Have I gone too far?
Yes, much too far.
Sorry, sir. I got sort of carried away.
Evidently. Taplow?
Yes, sir?
What was that Mr. Crocker Harris said to you? Just repeat it, would you?
My dear Taplow, I have given you exactly what you deserve, no less and certainly no more.
Not in the least like him. Read your nice Aeschylus and be quiet.
Aeschylus?
Look, what time did Mr. Crocker Harris tell you to be here?
7 o'clock, sir.
Well, he's late. Why did you cut? You could still get 9 holes in before lock-up.
Oh, no, I couldn't cut. He'd probably follow me home or something.
I must admit I envy him, the effect he seems to have on you boys in his form. You all seem scared to death of him. What does he do, beat you all or something?
Good Lord, no. He's not a sadist like one or two of the others.
I beg your pardon?
A sadist, sir, is someone who gets pleasure out of giving pain.
Indeed. But I think he went on to say that some other masters...
Well, of course they are, sir. I won't mention names, but you know them as well as I do. Of course, I know most masters think we boys don't understand a thing, but dash it, sir, you're different. You're young. Well, comparatively, anyway. And you're science. And you canvassed for Labour in the last election. You must know what sadism is.
What are public schools coming to?
Anyway, the Croc isn't a sadist. That's what I'm saying. He wouldn't be so frightening if he were, because at least it would show he had some feelings. But he hasn't. He's all shriveled up inside like a nut. And he seems to hate people to like him. It's funny, that. I don't know any other master who doesn't like being liked.
And I don't know any boy who doesn't trade on that very foible.
Well, it's natural, sir. But not with the Croc.
Mr. Crocker Harris.
Mr. Crocker Harris. The funny thing is that in spite of everything, I do rather like him. I can't help it. And sometimes I think he sees it, and that seems to shrivel him up even more.
I'm sure you're exaggerating.
No, sir, I'm not. In form the other day, he made one of his little classical jokes. Of course, nobody laughed because nobody understood it, myself included. Still, I knew he'd meant it as funny, so I laughed. Not out of sucking up, sir, I swear. But ordinary common politeness. I'm feeling a bit sorry for him, having made a dud joke. Now, I can't remember what the joke was, but let's say it was, Benedictus, Benedicator, Benedictine. Now, you laugh, sir. That's it. Well, he peered at me over the top of his spectacles, and then he crooked his finger the way he does, you know, and beckoned me up to his desk. And he said, "Taplow, you laughed at my little pun, I noticed. I must confess I am flattered at the evident advance your Latinity has made, that you should so readily have understood what the rest of the Ford did not. Perhaps now you would be good enough to explain it to them, so that they too can share your pleasure. Come along, Taplow. Do not be so selfish as to keep a good joke to yourself. Tell the others." Oh, Lord, Mrs. Crocker Harris.
Oh, hello.
Hello, friend. Take some of these parcels, will you?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Put them anywhere. I must get rid of this wretched hat. I shan't be a moment.
Do you think she heard?
No.
I think she did. She must have been standing there by the French window quite a time. If she did, and she tells him, there goes my remove.
Nonsense.
Waiting for my husband, Tableau?
Yes.
He's at the bursars. Might be there quite a time. If I were you, I'd go.
Well, he said most particularly I was to come.
Well, why don't you run away for a quarter of an hour and come back?
Supposing he gets here before me?
I'll take the blame. I tell you what, you can do a job for him. Take this prescription to the chemist and get it made up.
All right, Mrs. Crocker-Harris.
And while you're there, you might as well slip into Stewart's and have a nice. Here's a bob. Catch.
Oh, thanks awfully. See she doesn't tell him.
Okay.
Oh, Tableau.
Yes, Mrs. Crocker-Harris?
I had a letter from my father today in which he says he once had the pleasure of meeting your mother.
Oh, really?
Yes. Was at some fete or other in Bradford. My uncle, that's Sir William Bartop, you know, made a speech, and so did your mother. My father met her afterwards at tea.
Oh, really?
He said he found her quite charming.
Oh, yeah. She's jolly good at those sort of functions. I'm sure she found him charming too. Well, I'd better get going. So long.
Thank you for coming round.
That's all right.
You're staying for dinner?
If I may.
If you may. Oh, give me a cigarette.
Here, well.
Thanks. You haven't given that cigarette case away yet, I see.
Did you think I would?
Frankly, yes. Lucky it's a man's case. I don't suppose any of your girlfriends would want it.
Oh, don't be absurd, Millie.
Where have you been all this week?
Correcting exam papers, making reports. You know what end of term is like.
I do know what end of term is like, but even Andrew has managed this last week to take a few hours off to say goodbye to people.
Oh, I really have been appallingly busy. Besides, I'm going to stay with you in Bradford.
Not for over a month. Andrew doesn't start his new job until September the 1st, but that's one of the things I had to tell you.
Oh. I'd meant to be in Devonshire in September.
Who with?
My family.
Surely you can go earlier, can't you? Go in August.
It'll be difficult.
Then you'd better come to me in August.
But Andrew will still be there.
Yes.
I think I can manage September.
That'd be better from every point of view. Except that it means I shan't see you for 6 weeks.
You'll survive that, all right?
Yes, I'll survive it. But not as easily as you will. I have much pride, have I? Oh, Frank, darling, I love you so much. Kiss me. You're very nervous.
I'm afraid of that screen arrangement in front of the door. You can't see people coming in.
Oh, yes, that reminds me. What were you and Tableau up to when I came in just now? Making fun of my husband?
Afraid so, yes.
Sounded rather a good imitation. I must get him to do it for me sometime. It was very naughty of you to encourage him.
I know, it was.
Bad for discipline.
Exactly. Carrying favour with the boys, too. Heavens, how easy it is to be popular. I've only been a master 3 years, but I've already slipped into an act and a vernacular that I just can't get out of. Why can't anyone never be natural with the little blighters?
They probably wouldn't like you if you were.
I suppose the trouble is we're all too scared of them. Either one gets forced into an attitude of false and hearty and jocular bonhomie like myself, or into the sort of petty, soulless tyranny which your husband uses to protect himself against the lower fifth.
He'd never be popular, whatever he did.
Possibly not. He ought never to have become a schoolmaster, really. Why did he?
It was his vocation, he said. He was sure he'd make a big success of it, especially when he got his job here first go off. Fine success he's made, hasn't he?
You should have stopped him.
How was I to know? Talked about getting a house, then a headmastership.
The Crocker headmaster? That's a pretty thought.
Yes, it's funny to think of now, all right. Still, he wasn't always the crock, you know. He had a bit more gumption once. At least, I thought he had. Oh, don't let's talk any more about him. It's too depressing.
I'm sorry for him.
He's not sorry for himself. So why should you be? It's me you should be sorry for.
I am.
Then show me. Kiss me again, Frank, darling.
No. Let go of me. I tell you, someone might come in. What have you been doing all day?
Calling on the other masters' wives, saying fond farewells. I've worked off 12, I've another 7 to do tomorrow.
Oh, you poor thing, I don't envy you.
Oh, it's the housemaster's wives that are the worst. They're all so hideously patronising. You should have heard Betty Carstairs. Oh, my dear, It's such terribly bad luck on you both that your husband should get his heart troubled just when if only he'd stayed on, he'd have been bound to get a house. I mean, he's considerably senior to my Arthur as it is, and they simply couldn't have gone on passing him over, could they?
There's a word for Betty Carstairs, my dear, that I would hesitate to employ before a lady.
She's got her eye on you, anyway.
Betty Carstairs? What utter rot.
Oh, yes, she has. I saw you at that concert and don't think I didn't notice.
Really, darling, really. I detest the woman.
Then what were you doing in her box at Lord's?
Carstairs invited me. I went there because it was a good place to see the match from.
Yes, I'm sure it was. Much better than the grandstand, anyway.
Oh, my word.
It's all right, my dear. Don't bother to apologise. We gave the seat away, as it happens.
I'm most terribly sorry.
It's all right. We couldn't afford a box, you see.
It wasn't that. You know it wasn't that. It's just that, well, I clean forgot.
Funny you didn't forget the Carstairs invitation.
Oh, Millie, don't be a fool.
It's you who are the fool. Frank, have you never been in love? I know you're not in love with me, but haven't you ever been in love with anyone? Don't you realise what torture you inflict on someone who loves you when you do a thing like that?
I've told you I'm sorry. I don't know what more I can say.
Why not the truth?
The truth is, I clean forgot.
The truth is you had something better to do, and why not say it?
All right. Believe that if you like. It happens to be a lie, but believe it all the same. Only for heaven's sake, stop this...
Then for heaven's sake, show me some pity. Do you think it's any pleasanter for me to believe that you cut me because you forgot? Do you think that doesn't hurt either? Blast. I was so determined to be brave and not mention Lord's. Why did I? Frank, just tell me one thing. Just tell me you're not running away from me. That's all I want to hear.
I'm coming to Bradford.
I think if you don't, I'll kill myself.
I'm coming to Bradford. Oh. Good evening, sir.
Oh, good evening, Hunter. Millie, is Taplow not here yet?
I sent him to the chemist to get your prescription made up.
What prescription?
Your heart medicine. Don't you remember? You told me this morning it had run out.
Of course I remember, my dear, but there was no need to send Taplow for it. If you'd telephoned the chemist, he would have sent it round in plenty of time. He knows the prescription. Now Taplow will be late, and I'm so pressed for time I hardly know how to fit him in. Oh, you must forgive me, Hunter. Most kind of you to drop in, but as Millie should have warned you, I'm expecting a pupil for extra work.
He's staying to dinner, Andrew.
Good. Then I shall see something of you. However, when Taplow returns, I'm sure you won't mind.
No, of course not. I'll make myself scarce now, if you'd rather. I mean, if you're busy.
No, there's no need for that. Sit down, do. Will you smoke? I don't, as you know, but Millie does. Millie, give our guest a cigarette.
I haven't any, I'm afraid. I had to catch one from him.
Would you like another? I've plenty more.
Thanks.
We expected you at Lord's, Hunter.
What? Oh, yes. I'm most terribly sorry.
He clean forgot, Andrew, imagine.
Forgot?
I really can't apologise enough.
Oh, please don't bother to mention it. On the second day, we managed to sell the seat to a certain Dr. Lambert, who wore, I regret to say, the colours of the opposing faction, but who otherwise seemed a passably agreeable person. You liked him, didn't you, Millie?
Very much indeed. I thought him quite charming.
A charming old gentleman. Will you have that tea, Hunter?
Yes, thank you.
Is there any other refreshment I can offer you?
No, thank you.
Would it interest you to see the new timetable I've drafted for next term?
Yeah, very much. I say, what a wonderful piece of work. I never knew you drafted our timetables.
Didn't you? I have done so for the last 15 years. Of course, they are always issued in mimeograph under the headmaster's signature. Now, what form do you take? Upper Fifth Science. There you are. That's the general picture, but on the back you'll see each form specified under separate headings. There, that's a new idea of mine. Millie, this might interest you.
You know it bores me to death.
Millie has no head for this kind of work. There, you see. Now, here you can follow the Upper Fifth Science throughout every day of the week.
I must say, I think this is really a wonderful job.
Thank you. It has the merit of clarity, I think.
I don't know what they'll do without you.
They'll find somebody else, I expect.
What sort of job is this you're going to?
Hasn't Millie told you?
Well, she said it was a private school.
A crammer's for backward boys. It is run by an old Oxford contemporary of mine who lives in Dorset. The work will not be so arduous as here, and my doctor seems to think I will be able to undertake it without danger.
This was rotten bad luck for you. I'm awfully sorry.
My dear Hunter, there's nothing whatever to be sorry for. I'm looking forward to the change. Come in.
I brought your medicine, sir.
Ah, Taplow, good. You have been running, I see.
Yes, sir.
There was a queue at the chemist's, I suppose.
Yes, sir.
And doubtless an even longer one at Stewart's.
Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir.
You were late yourself, Andrew.
Exactly. And for that I apologise, Taplow.
That's all right, sir.
Luckily, we still have a good hour before lock-up, so nothing has been lost.
I better go and see about dinner.
Taplow is desirous of obtaining a remove from my form, Hunter, so that he can spend the rest of his career here playing happily with the crucibles, retorts, and Bunsen burners of your Science Fifth.
Oh. Has he?
Has he what?
Obtained his remove?
He has obtained exactly what he deserves. No less, and certainly no more.
Sorry, sir.
Oh, well, I think I'll cut back to my digs now. May I use the shortcut through the garden?
Do, by all means. We dine at 8. Sit down, Taplow. Open your book at page 41, line 1399. Begin.
Chorus. We are surprised at...
We marvel at...
We marvel at thy tongue, how bold thou art, that you... Thou... Canst... boastfully speak...
Utter such a boastful speech...
over the bloody corpse of the husband you have slain.
Taplow, I presume you are using a different text from mine?
No, sir.
That's strange, for the line as I have it reads, Hatis toion depandri compadzais logon. However diligently I search, I can discover no bloody, no corpse, no you have slain. Simply husband.
Yes, sir, that's right.
Then why do you invent words that simply are not there?
I thought they sounded better, sir. More exciting. After all, she did kill her husband, sir. She's just been revealed with his dead body, and Cassandra's weltering in gore.
I'm delighted at this evidence, Taplow, of your interest in the rather more lurid aspects of dramaturgy, but I feel I must remind you that you are supposed to be construing Greek, not collaborating with Aeschylus.
Yes, but still, sir, translator's license, sir. I didn't get anything wrong. And after all, it is a play, and not just a bit of Greek construe.
I seem to detect a note of end of term in your remarks. I'm not denying that the Agamemnon is a play. It is perhaps the greatest play ever written.
I wonder how many people in the form think that. Sorry, sir. Shall I go on? Shall I go on, sir?
When I was a very young man, only 2 years older than you are now, Taplow, I wrote for my own pleasure a translation of the Agamemnon. A very free translation, I remember, in rhyming couplets.
The whole Agamemnon in verse? That must have been hard work, sir.
It was hard work, but I derived great joy from it. The play had so excited and moved me that I wished to communicate, however imperfectly, some of that emotion to others. When I had finished it, I remember, I thought it very beautiful. Almost more beautiful than the original.
Was it ever published, sir?
No. Yesterday I looked for the manuscript while I was packing my papers. I was unable to find it. I fear it is lost, like so many other things. Lost for good.
Hard luck, sir. Shall I go on, sir?
No. Go back and get that last line right.
That thou canst utter such a boastful speech over thy husband.
Yes, and now, if you would be so kind, you will do the line again, without the facial contortion which you just found necessary to accompany it.
The headmaster's just coming up the drive. Don't tell him I'm in. The fish pie isn't in the oven yet.
I'd better go, hadn't I, sir? I don't want to be in the way.
We do not yet know that it is I the headmaster wishes to see. Other people live in this building. Come in.
Ah, go ahead. I
Headmaster.
brought you in. I'm so glad. I hope I'm not disturbing you.
I have been taking a pupil in extra work.
On the penultimate of term? That argues either great conscientiousness on your part or considerable backwardness on his.
Perhaps a combination of both.
Quite so. But as this is my only chance of speaking to you before tomorrow, I think that perhaps your pupil will be good enough to excuse us.
Oh, yes, sir. Oh, that's really quite all right.
I'm extremely sorry, Taplow. You will please explain to your father exactly what occurred over this lost hour, and tell him I shall be in due course writing to him to return the money involved.
Yes, sir, but please don't bother, sir. I know it's all right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Have the Gilberts called on you yet?
The Gilberts? Who are they?
Gilbert is your successor with the lower fifth. He's down here today with his wife, and as they will be taking over this flat, I thought perhaps you wouldn't mind if they came in to look it over.
Of course not.
I've told you about him, I think. He is a very brilliant young man, and won exceptionally high honours at Oxford.
So I understand, sir.
Not, of course, as high as the honours you yourself won there. He didn't, for instance, win the Chancellor's Prize for Latin verse, or the Gainsford.
He won the Hertford Latin, then?
No. Did you win that too?
I did.
It's sometimes rather hard to remember that you are perhaps the most brilliant classical scholar we have ever had at the school.
You are very kind.
Hard to remember, I mean, because of your other activities. Your brilliant work in the school timetable, for instance, and also for your heroic battle for so long and against such odds as the soul-destroying lower fifth.
I have not found that my soul has been destroyed by the lower fifth, Headmaster.
I was joking, of course.
Oh, I see.
Is your wife in?
No, not at the moment.
I shall have a chance of saying goodbye to her tomorrow. I am rather glad I have got you to myself. I have a delicate matter, two rather delicate matters to broach.
Please sit down.
Thank you. Now, you have been with us in all 18 years, haven't you?
Yes.
It is extremely unlucky that you should have had to retire at so comparatively early an age, and so short a time before you would have been eligible for a pension.
Pension? You have decided, then, not to award me a pension?
Not I, my dear fellow. It has nothing at all to do with me. It's the governors who, I'm afraid, have been forced to turn down your application. I put your case to them as well as I could, but they decided, with great regret, that they couldn't make an exception to the rule.
But I thought, my wife thought, that an exception was made some 5 years ago.
Ah, in the case of Buller, you mean. True, but the circumstances with Buller were quite remarkable. It was, after all, in playing rugger against the school that he received that injury.
Oh, yes, I remember.
And then the governors received a petition from boys, old boys, and parents with over 500 signatures. Your own case, of course, is equally deserving, if not more so, for Buller was a younger man. Unfortunately, rules are rules, and are not made to be broken every few years. At any rate, that is the governor's view.
I quite understand.
I knew you would. Now, might I ask you a rather impertinent question?
Certainly.
You have, I take it, private means?
My wife has some.
Ah, yes. Your wife has often told me of her family connections. I understand her father has a business in Bradford, isn't it?
Yes, he runs a men's clothing shop in the arcade.
Indeed. Your wife's remarks had led me to imagine something a little more extensive.
My father-in-law made a settlement on my wife at the time of our marriage. She has about 300 a year of her own. I have nothing. Is that the answer to your question, Headmaster?
Yes. Thank you for your frankness. Now, this private school you are going to...
My salary at the Crammers is to be 200 a year.
Quite so. With board and lodging, of course.
For 8 months of the year.
Yes, I see. I had hoped that your own means had proved a little more ample. Your wife had certainly led me to suppose...
I am not denying that a pension would have been very welcome, Headmaster, but I see no reason to quarrel with the governor's decision. What is the other delicate matter you have to discuss?
Well, it concerns the arrangement at prize-giving tomorrow. You are, of course, prepared to say a few words.
I had assumed you would call on me to do so.
Of course, it is always done, and I know the boys appreciate the custom.
I have already made a few notes of what I'm going to say. Perhaps you would care...
No, that isn't necessary at all. I know I can trust your discretion, not to say your wit. It will be, I know, a very moving moment for you, indeed for us all. But, as I'm sure you'll realise, it is far better to keep these occasions from becoming too heavy and distressing. You know how little the boys appreciate sentiment.
I do.
That is why I planned my own reference to you at the end of my speech to be rather more light and jocular than I would otherwise have made it.
I quite understand. I, too, have prepared a few little jokes and puns for my speech. One, a play of words on Vale, farewell, and Wally, the Christian name of a backward boy in my class, is, I think, rather happy.
Yes. Oh, very neat, yeah. That should go down extremely well.
I'm glad you like it.
Well, now, there is a particular favour I have to ask of you in connection with the ceremony, and I know I shall not have to ask in vain. Fletcher, as you know, is leaving too.
Yes, he is going into the city, they tell me.
Yes. Now, he is, of course, considerably junior to you. He's only been here, let me see, 5 years. But, as you know, he has done great things for our cricket. Positive wonders, when you remember what doldrums we were in before he came.
Our win at Lord's this year was certainly most inspiring.
Exactly. Now, I'm sure that tomorrow the boys will make the occasion of his farewell speech a tremendous demonstration of gratitude. The applause might go on for minutes. You know what the boys feel about Lord's. And I seriously doubt my ability to cut it short, or even, I admit, the propriety of trying to do so. Now, you see the quandary in which I am placed.
Perfectly. You wish to refer to me and for me to make my speech before you come to Fletcher.
It's extremely awkward, and I feel wretched about asking it of you, but it's more for your own sake than for mine or Fletcher's that I do. After all, a climax is what one must try to work up to on these occasions.
Naturally, Headmaster, I wouldn't wish to provide an anticlimax.
You really mustn't take it amiss, my dear fellow. The boys in applauding Fletcher for several minutes, and yourself, say, for, well, not quite so long, won't be making any personal demonstration between you. It will be quite impersonal, I assure you. Quite impersonal.
I understand.
I knew you would. And I can hardly tell you how wisely I think you have chosen. Well, now, as that is all my business, I think perhaps I had better be getting along. This has been a terribly busy day for me. For you, too, I imagine.
Yes.
Ah, Headmaster. How good of you to drop in.
Mrs. Crocker Harris, how are you? You're looking extremely well, I must say. Has anyone ever told you, Crocker Harris, that you have a very attractive wife?
Many people, sir, but then I hardly need to be told.
Can I persuade you to stay a few moments and have a drink, Headmaster? It's so rarely we have the pleasure of seeing you.
Unfortunately, dear lady, I was just on the point of leaving. I have 2 frantic parents waiting for me at home. You are dining with us tomorrow, both of you, aren't you?
Oh, yes, indeed, and so looking forward to it.
I'm so glad. We can say our sad farewells then. Au revoir, Crocker Harris, and thank you very much.
I'll see you out, Headmaster. Don't forget to take your medicine, dear, will you?
No.
Lucky invalid to have such a very charming nurse.
I really don't know what to say to all these compliments, Headmaster. I don't believe you mean a word of them.
Every word. Till tomorrow, then. Goodbye.
Well, do we get it?
Get what?
The pension, of course. Do we get it?
No. The governors are afraid of establishing a precedent.
Why not?
It's against the rules.
Oh, Buller got it, didn't he? Buller got it. Now, what's the idea of giving it to him and not to us? The mean old brutes. And what did you say? Just sat there and made a joke in Latin, I suppose.
There wasn't very much I could say, in Latin or any other language.
Oh, wasn't there? I'd have said it all right. I wouldn't just have sat there twiddling my thumbs and taking it all from that old phony of a headmaster. But then, of course, I'm not a man. What do they expect you to do? Live on my money, I suppose.
There has never been any question of that. I shall be perfectly able to support myself.
Yourself? Well, doesn't the marriage service say something about the husband supporting his wife? You ought to know.
Yes, it does.
And how do you think you're going to do that on 200 a year?
I shall do my utmost to save some of it. You're welcome to it if I can.
Thank you, for precisely nothing. Well, what else did the old fool have to say?
The headmaster. He wants me to make my speech tomorrow before instead of after Fletcher.
Yes, I knew he was going to ask that.
You knew?
Yes. He asked my advice about it a week ago. I told him to go ahead. I knew you wouldn't mind, and as there isn't a Mrs. Fletcher to make me look a fool, I didn't give two hoots. Come in.
Mr. Crocker Harris?
Yes. Is it Mr. and Mrs. Gilbert?
Yes.
The headmaster told me you might look in.
I do hope we're not disturbing you.
Not at all. This is my wife.
How do you do?
Mr. and Mrs. Gilbert are our successors to this flat, my dear.
Oh, yes. How nice to meet you both.
How do you do? We really won't keep you more than a second. My wife thought as we were here you wouldn't mind us taking a squint at our future home.
This room is charming.
Do you think so? I'm afraid it isn't nearly as nice as I'd like to make it, but a schoolmaster's wife has to think of so many other things besides curtains and covers. Boys with dirty boots and a husband with leaky fountain pens, for instance.
Yes, I suppose so. Of course, I haven't been a schoolmaster's wife for very long, you know.
Don't swank, darling. You haven't been a schoolmaster's wife at all yet.
Oh, yes, I have. For 2 months. You were a schoolmaster when I married you.
Prep school doesn't count.
Have you only been married 2 months?
2 months and 16 days.
17.
Andrew, did you hear? They've only been married 2 months.
Indeed, is that all?
Oh, look, darling. They've got a garden. Oh, it is yours, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it's only a pocket handkerchief, I'm afraid. Shall I show you the rest of the flat? It's a bit untidy, but you must forgive that.
Of course.
And the kitchen is in a terrible mess. I'm in the middle of cooking dinner.
Do you cook?
Oh, yes, I have to. We haven't had a maid for 5 years.
Oh, I do think that's wonderful of you. I'm scared stiff of having to do it for Peter. I know the first dinner I have to cook for him will wreck our married life.
Highly probable.
Well, these days we've all got to try and do things we weren't really brought up to do. Come along, Mrs. Gilbert, and I'll show you the worst.
Don't you want to see the rest of the flat, Mr. Gilbert?
No, I leave all that sort of thing to my wife. She's the boss. I thought perhaps you could tell me something about the lower fifth.
What would you like to know?
Well, sir, quite frankly, I'm petrified.
I don't think you need to be. May I give you some sherry?
Oh, thank you.
They're mostly boys of about 15 or 16. They're not very difficult to handle. Here you are.
Oh, thanks. The headmaster said you ruled them with a rod of iron. He called you the Himmler of the lower fifth.
Did he? The Himmler of the lower fifth? I think he exaggerated. I hope he exaggerated. The Himmler of the lower fifth.
He only meant that you kept the most wonderful discipline. I must say I do admire you for that. I couldn't even manage that with 11-year-olds, so what I'll be like with 15s and 16s I shudder to think.
It's not so difficult. They aren't bad boys. Sometimes a little wild and unfeeling, perhaps, but not bad. The Himmler of the lower fifth. Dear me.
Perhaps I shouldn't have said that. I've been tactless, I'm afraid.
Oh, no. Please, sit down.
Oh, thank you.
From the very beginning, I realized that I didn't possess the knack of making myself liked. A knack that you will find you do possess.
Oh, do you think so?
Oh, yes, I'm quite sure of it. It is not a quality of great importance to a schoolmaster, though, for too much of it, as you may also find, is as great a danger as the total lack of it. Oh, forgive me lecturing, won't you?
I want to learn.
I can only teach you from my own experience. For 2 or 3 years I tried very hard to communicate to the boys some of my own joy in the great literature of the past. Of course I failed, as you will fail 999 times out of 1,000. But a single success can atone, and more than atone, for all the failures in the world. And sometimes, very rarely it is true, but sometimes I had that success. That was in the early years.
Please, go on, sir.
In the early years, too, I discovered an easy substitute for popularity. I had, of course, acquired, we all do, many little mannerisms and tricks of speech, and I found that the boys were beginning to laugh at me. I was very happy at that, and encouraged the boys' laughter by playing up to it. It made our relationship so very much easier. They didn't like me as a man, but they found me funny as a character. And you can teach more things by laughter than by earnestness, for I never did have much sense of humour. So, for a time, you see, I was quite a success as a schoolmaster. I fear this is all very personal and embarrassing to you. Forgive me. You need have no fears about the lower fifth.
I'm afraid I said something that hurt you very much. It's myself you must forgive, sir. Believe me, I'm desperately sorry.
There's no need. You were merely telling me what I should have known for myself. Perhaps I did in my heart, and hadn't the courage to acknowledge it. I knew, of course, that I was not only not liked, but now positively disliked. I had realized, too, that the boys, for many long years now, had ceased to laugh at me. I don't know why they no longer found me a joke. Perhaps it was my illness. No, I don't think it was that. Something deeper than that. Not a sickness of the body, but a sickness of the soul. At all events, it didn't take much discernment on my part to realize I had become an utter failure as a schoolmaster. Still, stupidly enough, I hadn't realized that I was also feared. The Himmler of the lower fifth. I suppose that will become my epitaph.
Oh, please, sir.
I cannot for the life of me imagine why I should choose to unburden myself on you, a total stranger, when I've been silent to others for so long. Perhaps it is because my very unworthy mantle is about to fall on your shoulders. If that is so, I shall take a prophet's privilege and foretell that you will have a very great success with the lower fifth.
Thank you, sir. I shall do my best.
I can't offer you a cigarette. I'm afraid I don't smoke.
Oh, that's all right, sir. Nor do I.
Thank you so much for showing me round. Oh, just imagine, Peter. Mr. and Mrs. Crocker Harris first met each other on a holiday in the Lake District. Isn't that a coincidence?
Yes, it certainly is. On a walking tour, too.
Andrew was on a walking tour. No walking for me. I can't abide it. I was staying with my uncle. That's Sir William Bartop, you know. You may have heard of him. Well, he'd taken a house near Windermere. Quite a mansion it was, really. Rather silly for an old gentleman living alone. And Andrew knocked on our front door one day and asked the footman for a glass of water. So my uncle invited him in to tea.
Our meeting wasn't quite as romantic as that.
I knocked her flat on her face.
Not with love at first sight. With the swing door of our hotel bar. So, of course, then he apologised.
Darling, the Crocker Harrises, I'm sure, have far more important things to do than to listen to your detailed but inaccurate account of our very sordid little encounter. Why not just say I married you for your money and leave it at that? Oh, come on, we must go.
Isn't he awful to me, Mrs. Crocker Harris?
Men have no souls, my dear. My husband is just as bad.
Goodbye, Mr. Crocker Harris.
Goodbye.
I think your idea about the dining room is awfully good, Mrs. Crocker Harris. If only I can get permission from the school.
Goodbye, sir.
Oh, you will, I know, respect the confidences I've just made to you.
I should hate you to think I wouldn't.
Oh, I'm sorry to have embarrassed you. I don't know what came over me. I've not been very well, you know. Goodbye, my dear fellow, and my best wishes.
Thank you. The very best of good luck to you too, sir, in your future career.
My future career? Oh, yes, thank you.
Well, goodbye, sir.
Goodbye. Goodbye, and thank you so much.
Good-looking couple.
Very.
He looks as if he'd got what it takes. I should think he'd be a success, all right.
That's what I thought.
I don't think it's much of a career, though, schoolmaster, for a likely young chap like that.
I know you don't.
I bet when he leaves this place it won't be without a pension. It'll be roses, roses all the way, and tears and cheers and goodbye, Mr. Chips.
I expect so.
What's the matter with you?
Nothing.
You're not going to have another of your attacks, are you? You look dreadful.
I'm perfectly all right.
Well, you know best. Your medicine's on the table anyway, if you want it. I must see to the dinner.
The Himmler of the lower fifth. Come in. Yes, Taplow, what is it?
I just came back to say goodbye, sir.
Oh.
Didn't have a chance with the head here. I rather dashed out, I'm afraid. I thought I'd just come back and wish you luck, sir.
Thank you, Taplow. That's good of you.
I thought this book might interest you, sir.
Oh, what is it?
First translation of the Agamemnon, sir. The Browning version. It's not much good. I've been reading it in the chapel gardens.
Ah, very interesting, Taplow. I know the translation, of course. It has its faults, I agree, but I think you will enjoy it more when you get used to the metre he employs. And thanks for showing it to me.
It's for you, sir.
For me?
Yes, sir. I've written in it. Look, on the flyleaf.
Did you buy this?
Yes, sir. It was only second-hand.
You shouldn't have spent your pocket money this way.
That's all right, sir. Wasn't very much. But the price isn't still inside, is it?
No. Just what you've written, nothing else.
That's all right, then. What's the matter, sir? Have I got the accent wrong on?
No, the Paris Promenade is perfectly correct. Taplow, would you be good enough to take that bottle of medicine which you so kindly brought in and pour me out one dose in a glass which you will find in the bathroom through there?
Yes, sir.
The doses are clearly marked on the bottle. I usually put a little water with it.
Yes, sir. Won't be a moment, sir. Here you are, sir.
Thank you. You must forgive this exhibition of weakness, Taplow. The truth is I have been going through rather a strain lately.
Of course, sir. I quite understand.
Come in.
Oh, sorry, I thought you'd be finished by now.
Come in, Hunter, do. It's perfectly all right. Our lesson was over some time ago, but Taplow most kindly came back to say goodbye.
You sure I'm not intruding?
Oh, no. I want you to see this book that Taplow has given me. And, look, a translation of the Agamemnon by Robert Browning. Do you see the inscription he has put into it?
Yes, but it's no use to me, I'm afraid. I never learnt Greek.
Then we'll have to translate it for him, won't we, Taplow?
Yes, sir.
Ton cretunta maltecos theos prosoten eumenos prostercetai. That means, in a rough translation, God, from afar, looks graciously upon a gentle master. It comes from a speech of Agamemnon's to Clytemnestra.
I see. Very pleasant. And very apt.
Very pleasant. But not, perhaps, after all, so very apt.
Cut along, Taplow.
Very well, sir. Goodbye, sir. The best of luck.
Goodbye, Taplow. And thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Dear me, what a fool I made of myself in front of that boy. And in front of you, Hunter. I can't imagine what you must think of me.
Oh, nonsense.
I'm not a very emotional person, as you know, but there was something so very touching and kindly about his action. And coming as it did just after. This is a very delightful gift, don't you think?
Delightful.
The quotation, of course, he didn't find entirely by himself. I happened to make some little joke about the line in form the other day. But he must have remembered it all the same to have found it so readily. And perhaps he means it.
I'm sure he does. Or he wouldn't have written it.
Hello, Frank. I'm glad you're in time. Give me a cigarette. I've been gasping for one for an hour.
Oh, certainly. Your husband has just had a very nice present.
Who? Who from?
Taplow.
Oh, Taplow. Let's see.
It's this book, the Browning translation of the Agamemnon. He bought it with his own pocket money, Millie, and wrote a very charming inscription inside. Look.
God looks kindly upon a gracious master.
No, not gracious. Gentle, I think. Prosoten numenos. Yes, I think gentle is the better translation. I would rather have had this present than almost anything I can think of.
The artful little beast.
Millie.
Artful? Why artful?
Millie, please.
Why artful, Millie?
Oh, my dear. Because I came into this room this afternoon to find him giving an imitation of you to Frank here. Obviously was scared stiff. I was going to tell you, and you ditch his remove or something. Oh, I don't blame him for trying a few bobs worth of appeasement.
I see.
Well, take your book.
Put it on the table, will you?
Where are you going, dear? Dinner's nearly ready.
Only to my room for a moment. I won't be long.
You've just had your medicine, dear. I shouldn't take another dose if I were you.
I am allowed 2 at a time.
Well, see it is 2 and no more, won't you?
I will.
Millie, how could you?
Oh, why not? Why should he be allowed his comforting little illusions? I'm not.
Listen, you're to go to his room now and tell him that was a lie.
Certainly not. It wasn't a lie.
If you don't, I will.
I shouldn't if I were you. It'll only make things worse. He won't believe you.
We'll see about that.
Oh, go ahead. See what happens. He knows I don't lie to him. He knows what I told him was the truth, and he won't like your sympathy. He'll think you're making fun of him, like Taplow.
You may be right. Well, that's that. We're finished, Millie, you and I.
Oh, Frank, really? Oh, don't be hysterical.
I'm not. I mean it.
Oh, yes, you mean it. Of course you mean it. Now, just sit down, dear, and relax, and forget all about artful little boys and their 5-bob presents, and talk to me.
Forget? If I live to be 100, I shall never forget that little glimpse you've just given me of yourself.
Frank, you're making a frightening mountain out of an absurd little molehill.
All right. But the mountain I'm making in my imagination is so frightening that I'd rather try to forget both it and the repulsive little molehill that gave it birth. But as I know I never can, I tell you, Millie, from this moment, you and I are finished.
You can't scare me, Frank. I know that's what you're trying to do, but you can't do it.
I'm not trying to scare you, Millie. I'm telling you the simple truth. I'm not coming to Bradford.
All right, my dear. If that's the way you feel about it, don't come to Bradford.
Right. Now, I think you ought to go to your room and look after Andrew. I'm leaving.
Oh, no. No, stop a minute, Frank. I don't understand. Really, I don't. What have I done?
I think you know what you've done, Millie. Go and look after Andrew.
Andrew? Well, why this sudden concern for Andrew?
Because I think he's just been about as badly hurt as a human being can be. And as he's a sick man and in a rather hysterical state, might be a good plan to go and see how he is.
Hurt? Andrew? Hurt? Oh, you can't hurt Andrew. He's dead.
Why do you hate him so much, Millie?
Because he keeps me from you.
That isn't true.
Because he's not a man at all.
He's a human being.
You've got a fine right to be so noble about him after deceiving him for 6 months.
Twice in 6 months. At your urgent invitation. Thank you for that. I deserved it. I deserve a lot worse than that, too.
Oh, Frank, forgive me. I didn't mean it.
You better have the truth, Millie. It had to come sometime. I've never loved you. I've never told you I loved you.
I know, Frank. I know. I've always accepted that.
You asked me just now if I was running away from you. Well, I was.
I knew that, too.
But I was coming to Bradford. It was going to be the very last time I was ever going to see you. And at Bradford I would have told you that.
You wouldn't. You wouldn't. You've tried to tell me that so often before, and I've always stopped you somehow. Somehow. I would have stopped you again.
I don't think so, Millie. Not this time.
Frank, I don't care what humiliations you heap on me. I know you don't give 2 hoots for me as a person. I've always known that. I've never minded so long as you cared for me as a woman. And you do, Frank, you do. You do, don't you? Oh, it'll be all right at Bradford. You'll see. It'll be all right there.
I'm not coming to Bradford, Millie.
Perhaps you'd be so kind as to put this medicine bottle away, Millie.
How much have you taken?
You should know me well enough by now, my dear, to realise how unlikely it is that I should ever take an overdose.
I must put the final touches to the dinner.
I'm not staying to dinner, I'm afraid.
Indeed, I'm sorry to hear that. You'll have a glass of sherry?
No, thank you.
You'll forgive me if I do.
Oh, of course. Well, perhaps I'll change my mind. About Taplow.
Oh, yes?
It is perfectly true that he was imitating you. I, of course, was mostly to blame in that, and I'm very sorry.
That is perfectly all right. Was it a good imitation?
No.
I expect it was. Boys are often very clever mimics.
We talked about you, of course, before that. He said... You probably won't believe this, but I think I ought to tell you. He said he liked you very much.
Indeed.
I can remember very clearly his exact words. He said, he doesn't seem to like people to like him, but in spite of that, I do. Very much. So, you see, it looks, after all, as if the book might not have been a mere question of appeasement.
The book? Dear me, what a lot of fuss about a little book. And not a very good little book at that.
I would like you to believe me.
Possibly you would, my dear Hunter, but I can assure you I'm not particularly concerned about Taplow's views of my character, or about yours either, if it comes to that.
I think you should keep that book all the same. You may find it'll mean something to you after all.
Exactly. It will mean a perpetual reminder to myself of the story with which Taplow is at this very moment regaling his friends in the house. I gave the Croc a book to buy him off, and he blubbed. The Croc blubbed. I tell you, I was there, I saw it. The Croc blubbed. My mimicry is not as good as his, I fear. Forgive me. And now let us leave this idiotic subject and talk of more pleasant things. Do you like this sherry? I got it on my last visit to London.
If Taplow ever breathes a word of that story to anyone at all, I'll murder him. But he won't. If you think I will, you greatly underestimate my character as well as his. Goodbye.
Are you leaving so soon? Goodbye, my dear fellow.
As this is the last time I shall probably ever see you, I'm going to offer you a word of advice.
I shall be glad to listen to it.
Leave your wife.
So that you may the more easily carry on your intrigue with her?
How long have you known that?
Since it first began.
How did you find out?
By information.
By whose information?
By someone whose word I could hardly discredit.
No. That's too horrible to think of.
Nothing is ever too horrible to think of, Hunter. It is simply a question of facing facts.
She might have told you a lie. Have you faced that fact?
She never tells me a lie. In 20 years she has never told me a lie. Only the truth.
This was a lie?
No, my dear Hunter. Do you wish me to quote you dates?
And she told you 6 months ago?
Isn't it 7?
Then why have you allowed me inside your home? Why haven't you done something? Reported me to the governors, anything, made a scene, knocked me down.
Knocked you down?
You didn't have to invite me to dinner.
My dear Hunter, if over the last 20 years I had allowed such petty considerations to influence my choice of dinner guests, I would have found it increasingly hard to remember which master to invite and which to refuse. You see, Hunter, you mustn't flatter yourself you're the first. My information is a good deal better than yours, you understand. It's authentic.
She's evil.
That's hardly a kindly epithet to apply to a lady whom I gather you have asked to marry.
Did she tell you that?
She's a dutiful wife. She tells me everything.
That at least was a lie.
She never lies.
That was a lie. Do you want the truth? Can you bear the truth?
I can bear anything.
What I did cold-bloodedly. Out of weakness and ignorance and crass stupidity. I'm bitterly, bitterly ashamed of myself. But in a sense I'm glad you know, though I'd rather 1,000 times that you'd heard it from me than from your wife. I won't ask you to forgive me. I can only tell you with complete truth that the only emotion she has ever succeeded in arousing in me, she aroused in me for the first time 10 minutes ago. An intense and passionate disgust.
What a delightfully chivalrous statement.
Oh, forget chivalry, Croc, for heaven's sake. Forget all your fine mosaic scruples. You must leave her. It's your only chance.
She's my wife, Hunter. You seem to forget that. As long as she wishes to remain my wife, she may.
She's out to kill you.
Oh, my dear Hunter, if that was indeed her purpose, you should know by now that she fulfilled it long ago.
Why won't you leave her?
Because I wouldn't wish to add another grave wrong to one I have already done her.
What wrong have you done her?
To marry her. You see, my dear Hunter, she is really quite as much to be pitied as I. We are both of us interesting subjects for your microscope. Both of us needing from the other something that would make life supportable for us, and neither of us able to give it. Two kinds of love, hers and mine. Worlds apart, as I know now, though when I married her I didn't think they were incompatible. In those days I hadn't thought that her kind of love, the love she requires and which I was unable to give her, was so important that its absence would drive out the other kind of love, the kind of love that I require, and which I thought in my folly was by far the greater part of love. I may have been, you see, Hunter, a brilliant classical scholar, but I was woefully ignorant of the facts of life. I know better now, of course. I know that in both of us the love that we should have borne each other has turned to bitter hatred. That's all the problem is. Not a very unusual one, I venture to think, nor nearly as tragic as you seem to imagine. Merely the problem of an unsatisfied wife and a hen-pecked husband. You'll find it all over the world. It is usually, I believe, a subject for farce. And now, if you have to leave us, my dear fellow, please don't let me detain you any longer.
Don't go to Bradford. Stay here until you take up your new job.
I think I've already told you I'm not interested in your advice.
Leave her. It's the only way.
Will you please go?
All right. I'd just like you to say goodbye to me properly, though. Will you? I shan't see you again. I know you don't want my pity, but I would like to be of some help.
If you think by this expression of kindness, Hunter, that you can get me to repeat the shameful exhibition of emotion I made to Taplow a moment ago, I must tell you that you have no chance. My hysteria over that book just now was no more than the reflex action of the spirit, the muscular twitchings of a corpse. It can never happen again.
A corpse can be revived.
I don't believe in miracles.
Don't you? Funnily enough, as a scientist, I do.
Your faith would be touching if I were capable of being touched by it.
You are, I think. I'd like to come and visit you at this Crammers.
That is an absurd suggestion.
I suppose it is, rather, but all the same, I'd like to do it. May I?
Of course not.
Your term begins on the 1st of September, doesn't it?
I tell you, the idea is quite childish.
I could come about the second week.
You would be bored to death, and so probably would I.
Where's my diary? Let's say Monday the 12th, then.
Say anything you like. Only please go. Please go, Hunter.
That's fixed, then. Monday, September the 12th. Will you remember that?
I suppose I'm at least as likely to remember it as you are.
That's fixed, then. Goodbye. Until then.
Goodbye.
May I go out through your garden?
Of course.
I'm off to have a quick word with Taplow. Oh, by the way, may I take him a message from you?
What message?
Has he or has he not got his remove?
He has.
May I tell him?
It is highly irregular. Yes, you may.
Good. Oh, by the way, I'd better have the address of that Crammers.
Dinner's ready. You're staying, Frank, aren't you?
No, I'm afraid not. What's that address?
The old deanery.
The old deanery?
Malcolm.
Dorset. Dorset. Ah, I'll write to you and you can let me know about trains. Goodbye.
Oh, it's a laugh, I must say.
What's a laugh, my dear?
You inviting him to stay with you.
I didn't. He suggested it.
He's coming to Bradford.
Yes, I remember your telling me so.
He's coming to Bradford. He's not going to you.
The likeliest contingency is that he's not going to either of us. Shall we have dinner?
He's coming to Bradford.
I expect so. Oh, by the way, I'm not. I shall be staying here until I go to Dorset.
Suit yourself. What makes you think I'll join you there?
I don't.
You needn't expect me.
I don't think either of us has the right to expect anything further from the other. I don't... Excuse me. Yes, headmaster. With the timetable. It's perfectly simple. The middle 4th B Division will take a 10-minute break on Tuesdays and a 15-minute break on alternate Wednesdays, while exactly the reverse procedure will apply to the lower shell C Division. I thought I had sufficiently explained that on my chart. Oh, I see. Well, thank you. That is very good of you, yes. I think you will find it will work out quite satisfactorily. Oh, by the way, headmaster, I have changed my mind about the prize-giving ceremony. I intend to speak after instead of before Fletcher, as is my privilege. Yes, I quite understand, but I am now seeing the matter in a different light. I know, but I am of the opinion that occasionally an anticlimax can be surprisingly effective. Goodbye. Come along, my dear. We mustn't let our dinner get cold.
You have been listening to the Browning version by Terence Rattigan in our special Summer Radio Play Festival.